Hello and welcome to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Explore our playlist for more captivating novels, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new audiobook. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. I was stuck on the same day for 1,000 years. So you're saying that you have transmigrated more than 300,000 times today? Yes. To be precise, it is 1,000 years. Today is exactly 1,000 years. The lights were gorgeous. In the dark corner of the bar, a man and a woman were whispering and laughing. Tisk tisk. Mu Qianchen, with smoky makeup and colorful hair, curled her lips and shook her head drunkenly. Is this your method of chasing girls? Make up a bizarre story. The method is really old-fashioned, but the story is quite interesting. What I said is true. Wu Chen shook the red wine glass and smiled. Really? Aren't you afraid that I will gossip about you? We just met, and you trust me so much. Mu Qianchen joked. What does it matter? To me, everything will be reset tomorrow. Oh no, to be precise, I am a person without tomorrow. When I wake up again, we will be strangers. Wu Chen shrugged. Liar. Haven't you tried staying up late? Not sleeping. I tried, many times, but I would fall asleep and I couldn't control it. TCH. I don't believe you. Mu Qianchen ignored Wu Chen and looked down at the phone. She had an appointment with her best friend today, but she had been here for more than an hour, and her best friend hadn't come yet. It was Wu Chen who suddenly came over to strike up a conversation with her. Mu Qianchen was bored waiting, so she chatted with Wu Chen for a while, but she didn't expect Wu Chen to be a psychopath, claiming to have been reincarnated for 1,000 years or something. Your girlfriend won't come, Wu Chen said lightly. Huh. Mu Qianchen raised her head and squinted her eyes. How do you know about my best friend? I've said it already, this day is repeated to me, and it's not the first time I've seen you. I often come to this bar. I know every guest here. Wu Chen took a sip of his wine with a smile. Then why won't my girlfriend come? Do you know why? Mu Qianchen tried to expose Wu Chen's lies. Her boyfriend came back suddenly and surprised her, so she can't come. Wu Chen said and glanced at his watch. In another 9 minutes and 13 seconds, she will call you and tell you that she can't come. Quote. Accurate to the second. Mu Qianchen glanced at the time on her phone, and then said, it's 10:07 p.m. Okay, I'll wait for 9 minutes. If she doesn't call me, I'll know you're a liar. Okay. Wu Chen tilted his head and raised his glass to Mu Qianchen. Mu Qianchen clinked glasses with Wu Chen. You said that you are familiar with all the beauties in this city who have a beauty score of 8 or above. Is that true? Mu Qianchen asked again. She was also bored and listening to psychopaths. Made-up stories was also very interesting. Yes, they are very familiar, very familiar. Wu Chen nodded, and added with a smile, but my life resets every day. I know them, but they don't know me now. Then you only have 1 day to get to know them. Mu Qianchen wanted to expose Wu Chen's lies again. Of course not. For others, I need to get to know them first. For example, I will use 5 days to fully investigate a girl. Although the 5 days are repeated in time, on the 6th day, she doesn't know me still, but I already know her interests, hobbies, outlook on her career and life, etc. So when I meet her again, what I do will make her feel that I am her confidant in life. In fact, one advantage of repeated repetition is that I can make unlimited mistakes without worrying about leaving a bad impression. Among so many girls I have met, the most difficult one to contact, I spent a total of 36 days and made countless mistakes. Mistakes lead to success. Then according to what you said, what's the point of your doing this? They don't remember you. Mu Qianchen asked. The life I keep repeating is meaningless. If I insist on saying something meaningful, Wu Chen looked at the red wine glass and paused, then glanced at Mu Qianchen and smiled slightly, to prevent myself from going crazy. Being trapped on the same day, it's really boring. It's interesting to do something, get to know people, and recall memories. Wu Chen dared to say everything. Because it didn't matter, everything will start all over again tomorrow. Then how many 8-point beauties do you know? Mu Qianchen asked again. Actually, There are not many. I am very harsh on the beauty of women. There are tens of millions of people in Donghai City, and there are only 10,000 people with an appearance score of 8 or more. 10,000, do you know all of them? Mu Qianchen narrowed her eyes. Wu Chen nodded. As if. You're just shamelessly making these up. Mu Qianchen pouted again. Wu Chen shrugged, still indifferent. It didn't matter whether Mu Qianchen believed it or not, he just wanted to have a drink today and talk to someone. Brr. Mu Qianchen's cell phone vibrated suddenly. She looked down and saw that it was the news jewel robbery case solved, sent by the news client. She clicked on it, and as if she had thought of something, she handed the phone to Wu Chen and asked, "Take a look." It was the news of the great jewelry store robbery. At 9:30 this morning, the Jinfu Jewelry, in the commercial street of Donghai City was robbed by gangsters. Gold, silver and diamond jewels worth 20 million were taken away, and 2 shop assistants were injured. The case was solved in the afternoon, 1 gangster was at large and 3 gangsters were arrested. This incident made the national news and was repeatedly broadcast and pushed. Jinfu Jewelry is the top 3 jewelry company in the country, headquartered in Donghai. Su Ruiwen, the boss of Jinfu Group, is the richest man in Donghai, with a net worth of tens of billions. Well, what's the matter? Wu Chen glanced at the news and said. News photo, the last one. What happened to the last one? Wu Chen looked again. The last one was a photo of Su Ruiwen, the owner of Jinfu Jewelry, shaking hands to thank the police. Next to Su Ruiwen, there was a beautiful woman with wavy hair. This was Su Ruiwen's daughter, Su Qingying, the senior vice president of Jinfu Group. Su Qingying, you should know, domineering female CEO, graduated from Wharton Business School, has her own luxury brand, a strong woman. I know, what's wrong? Wu Chen asked again. You said that you know all the beauties in this city with a score of 8 or more, and you are very familiar with them. Mu Qianchen continued. Su Qingying is one of the best beauties in the East China Sea, with high education and high IQ. No matter how strict your aesthetic standards are, her appearance should be above 8 points, right? 9.5 points. Wu Chen continued. The ones who can compare with her beauty in the entire Donghai city can be counted on one hand. Then are you familiar with her? Mu Qianchen still wanted to expose Wu Chen's lies. Of course. Wu Chen nodded. You liar. There was a major robbery at Jinfu Jewelry today, and the police and reporters surrounded him all day. How could Su Qingying have time to meet a stranger like you? Besides, Su Qingying's family is strict. She is surrounded by bodyguards. I have never heard of her meeting any strange man casually, even if you know her, it is impossible. Haha, there is nothing else to say. Mu Qianchen laughed loudly after speaking. Exposing the crazy lie, she was very happy. To answer your second question first, you are right, Su Qingying is indeed difficult to get in touch with, difficult to get to know. Wu Chen said with a light smile, but she has a fatal weakness, enough to make it very easy to get to know her. What weakness? Guess, it's very interesting. Stop playing tricks. What weakness does such a perfect woman have? Wu Chen continued. That's right, the jewelry robbery happened. Su Qingying definitely didn't have time to get to know me. Even if she did, she wouldn't be in the mood to talk to me in detail. Woohoo! Mu Qianchen raised her eyebrows, showing a triumphant expression. But, Wu Chen pressed his arms on the table, leaned forward with a smile, and said in a low voice, what if I prevent the big robbery from happening? Mu Qianchen was taken aback. Today is a constant cycle for me. I have experienced it more than 300,000 times. For myself, I knew 1,000 years ago that the robbery would happen today. I have a lot of time to investigate repeatedly. Do you think it is difficult for me to stop the robbery? Wu Chen kept smiling. Mu Qianchen was speechless. My logic is all right, Wu Chen said as he picked up his wine glass and took a sip. Okay. Even if your logic is fine, then there is another problem. Mu Qianchen was not convinced, and she was going to make a big move. What's the question? Please tell me. Do you know me? You said you knew me a long time ago, so are you familiar with me? How much do you know about me? Are you and I also friends? Mu Qianchen asked Dao and stroked his hair. Wu Chen shook his head, smiled, and said nothing. Haha, don't you dare to admit it. Are you afraid that I will ask you what characteristics I have, and you won't be able to answer? Mu Qianchen laughed. No, your appearance is less than 8 points. I'm not interested in knowing more about you. Wu Chen said lightly. Mu Qianchen's smile froze immediately. Boom. Mu Qianchen patted the table and stood up, gritted her teeth, and said, how dare you say I'm ugly? You don't look bad, so I give you a 7. You, Mu Qianchen was furious. At this time, ding-a-ling, Mu Qianchen's cell phone rang. She took a look, it was a call from her best friend, and she immediately connected. Qianchen, I'm sorry, Wei came back suddenly and gave me a surprise. I can't go to the bar. I will treat you to dinner tomorrow, hee hee. I'll hang up first, beep. Chapter 2. Ruthless Character. Wu Chen, who everyone knows. Hey, Mu Qianchen wanted to say something to her best friend, but the other side had already hung up. She hummed angrily, and muttered, you son of a bitch, forget your friends when you see sex. 9 minutes and 13 seconds. Wu Chen said lightly. What 9 minutes and 13 seconds? Mu Qianchen, who was in a rage, looked up at Wu Chen, and then she was taken aback for a moment, then froze again. In another 9 minutes and 13 seconds, she will call you and tell you that she can't come. This was what Wu Chen told her before. Mu Qianchen suddenly held the phone with both hands, opened the call log, and quickly flipped through it. The incoming time of the girlfriend's phone call. At 10 hours 16 minutes and 23 seconds in the evening, if you subtract 9 minutes and 13 seconds, it is 10 hours 7 minutes and 10 seconds. And Mu Qianchen checked the time before. Although it was not accurate to the second, it was indeed 10:07. Mu Qianchen was stunned. This is impossible. Mu Qianchen stared blankly at Wu Chen, and sat down on the chair with a bang. Do you believe me? Wu Chen asked with a smile. Mu Qianchen had drunk a lot of alcohol, but now she was so frightened that she sobered up. Can you predict the future? This is not the first time I've seen you. Haha, okay. I got it. Mu Qianchen seemed to have figured something out again. Do you know my best friend? Are you in this together? Forget it, I don't want to say more. Wu Chen smiled helplessly. It had been 1,000 years, and during these long years, Wu Chen told countless people that he reincarnated on the same day, because it would be reset when he woke up, so he didn't care whether he said it or not. But few really believed in him. So Wu Chen usually talked about himself. It doesn't matter whether the other party believed it or not, and there was no need to explain too much. Sure enough, you and that bitch teamed up to lie to me. I must have exposed you. Mu Qianchen began to be a little proud of her IQ again. Where did you come from? Dare to make trouble here. Beauty, did he call you ugly? Do you want us to teach him a lesson for you? Mu Qianchen was suddenly surrounded by a group of people, all of whom were angry, obviously a group of punks. Originally, Wu Chen and Mu Qianchen talked unnoticed. But just now Mu Qianchen patted the table and stood up, which caught the attention of the gangsters in the bar. In fact, Mu Qianchen was very beautiful. Although her makeup was heavy, her foundation could still be seen. Wu Chen just didn't like heavy makeup, so he gave Mu Qianchen 7 points. Having tasted too many women, Wu Chen's vision was extremely high. But to others, Mu Qianchen was definitely a beauty. What did you say just now, kid? Did you say that this beauty is ugly? Beauty, is this kid harassing you? Come have a drink with my brother, and we will vent your anger on you. A group of gangsters said to Mu Qianchen. They were chattering, and even cursing at Wu Chen. What are you doing? It has nothing to do with you. Do you know who I am? Let me go. Mu Qianchen pushed left and right. They all understood what the little bastard was thinking. Mu Qianchen now thought that Wu Chen was a friend of her best friend, so he was naturally one of her own, and the gangster was a harasser. Boom! There was a loud bang, and everyone was startled. A little gangster squatted down holding his head. Blood was still coming from his head. If you fight, you just fight. What's the point? Wu Chen stood up holding a wine bottle. He shot too fast, and the others didn't react until after the beating. "Fuck, this kid dares to hit me. Fuck him." Quote. A few gangsters came up and wanted to surround and beat Wu Chen. Wu Chen raised his hand and went to the front. Poochie. Ah, my eyes. Wu Chen held half a wine bottle in his hand, and the cut was very sharp. He directly blinded a gangster's left eye, and the blood burst out. Wu Chen swiped again. Swiped directly at the neck of a gangster. This was to kill people. He didn't care about killing people, and he didn't remember how many people he has killed. Anyway, it would be reset, it didn't matter. The man reacted quite quickly, shrank back in fright, but felt a chill on his neck. It was full of blood when touched. Although it was not deep, there was a lot of blood. A group of gangsters was suddenly suppressed, or frightened. It was the first time they were attacked so ruthlessly. No matter how ruthless the character was, he would not directly rush to kill him. No matter how serious the injury was, it was a trivial matter. Beating the disabled and paralyzing them could be solved with money, but killing someone was a major matter. The punks all backed away with fear on their faces. Killer. The bar suddenly became chaotic, and the guests rushed out. At another booth not far away, several men all stood up at once. One of them with a long face and beard was the elder brother mentioned by the group of gangsters. They were together before. When Mu Qianchen patted the table and stood up, he noticed and asked his gangsters to bring Mu Qianchen over. Special. The long-faced bearded man came over aggressively. Seeing that one boy was blinded by being stabbed, and the other was directly slashed on the neck, he was covering his neck with one hand and frantically pressing the phone with the other to call 120. He was afraid that he would bleed to death. The few people who followed the long-bearded man were all powerful characters. Just as he was about to make a move, the long-bearded man raised his hand to stop him. Wu Chen was very calm. Seeing the man approaching, he threw the half-bloody wine bottle on the table and sat down directly. The long-bearded man felt a little apprehensive. This young man was only in his early 20s, yet he was so ruthless, yet so indifferent. Either he was a lunatic, or he had a big background and do things without taboos, and these two kinds of people were not easy to mess with. Hurry up, send them to the hospital first. The long-bearded man first directed the two younger brothers to send the two injured gangsters to the hospital. The eye was poked blind, and it was estimated that the left eye would not be saved. These were all small problems, mainly because the one whose neck was cut didn't come back, so it was a lot of fun. Lu Huzi, you've got a lot of skills. To make trouble in a bar, is this what your elder brother Zhao Guaizi taught you? Wu Chen asked calmly, looking at the long-bearded beard. You know me, and my elder brother, Lu Huzi thought. Sure enough, Wu Chen knew all the important figures in Donghai City, and he knew all their secrets. In addition, he also knew all the dignitaries in Donghai City who have some status. With tens of thousands of people, it was impossible for him to fully understand everyone, but as long as there was something special, he knew everything. However, because time kept resetting and every day is a new beginning, Wu Chen didn't have any contacts. Those people didn't know him now. But it didn't matter, understanding was enough, and wanting to get to know each other was a matter of minutes. This is Wang Zhuangyuan's territory. You Zhao Guaizi's people are making trouble here. Aren't you afraid that Shenzhong will feed you to the fish? Wu Chen said again. Lu Huzi's expression changed. He had already guessed that Wu Chen might be Wang Zhuangyuan's new master of ruthless roles. Wang Zhuangyuan never dealt with Zhao Guaizi. Originally, Lu Huzi usually would not bring people to Wang Zhuangyuan's place, and even if he did, he would not cause trouble, but today Wang Zhuangyuan's family had an elder at his funeral, and all his brothers had passed away. Only ordinary security personnel were left in the bar, so Lu Huzi brought people to have fun. Could it be that this kid was newly invited by Wang Zhuangyuan to take over the place? Brother, which family did you come from? Lu Huzi asked, his tone already very polite. Wu Chen and he looked at each other lightly but didn't answer. Don't say I didn't warn you, even if you belong to Wang Zhuangyuan, it's not in line with the rules to strike so hard. Lu Huzi's tone immediately became rude again. Mao was sent to the hospital. If he doesn't come out of it alive, even Wang Zhuangyuan can't protect you. Hey, Wu Chen grinned. Picking up the phone, he quickly entered a number and dialed. Chapter 3. Do you understand the rules? Mu Qianchen was so frightened that she stood there blankly. Although she played wildly, she had never seen such a scene. She wanted to run, but she felt as if all the gangsters were staring at her and Wu Chen. The call made by Wu Chen got through quickly. Hey, how do you know this number? Who are you? The voice from the phone was hoarse and vigilant. This was his private number that few people know, and only important people could contact him through this number. Zhao Guaizi, are your brothers really good at causing trouble? What did they say at the meeting in May? Didn't you say that you can make money together? Are you going to start a war and mess up the East China Sea again? Wu Chen made direct questioning. Zhao Guaizi on the other end of the phone was stunned. The other party knew about the May meeting. Also, he knows this number. That meant, you are, Zhao Guaizi asked cautiously. Young Master Li asked me to send you a message. Take good care of your people, next time it won't be as simple as a phone call, understand? Wu Chen said. Mr. Li, then you are, yes, I promise, don't worry, there won't be a next time. This time is my fault, I will definitely change. In fact, Zhao Guaizi didn't know what happened, but he admitted his mistake first. Well, wait a minute. Wu Chen said, looked up at Lu Huzi and said, answer the phone. He put the phone on the table and slid it over. Lu Huzi picked up the phone suspiciously, and when he heard it, he immediately became respectful. Brother, it's me, that's right, big brother is not, we are in Wang Zhuangyuan's bar, it's not a big deal, it's big brother, I was wrong, big brother, Lu Huzi got up, cold sweat dripping down his forehead. Soon, after listening to the call, he took a few steps forward, dragging his hands, and handed the phone to Wu Chen. Wu Chen took it and put it in his ear. This time it was our fault. Don't worry, there will definitely be no next time. Lu Huzi will be in your hands. Zhao Guaizi's tone was very careful. Well, it's done. Wu Chen hung up after finishing speaking and looked at Lu Huzi. Thump. Lu Huzi knelt down and begged, brother. I was wrong. I have seniors and juniors. I don't want to die, brother. It's my fault. I admit my mistake. Crack. Snapped. As Lu Huzi said, he slapped himself in the face. Seeing this scene, Lu Huzi's younger brothers were all terrified, and some dared not look directly at Wu Chen. Apologized to her for scaring her. Wu Chen tilted his head and gestured. Lu Huzi moved immediately, knelt down to Mu Qianchen, and begged for a slap in the face again. Sister-in-law, I made a mistake. Sister-in-law, please forgive me, I will never dare again. Sister-in-law, what do you want me to do? It's fine, as long as you don't let me die. Calling her sister-in-law directly, he naturally misunderstood the relationship between Mu Qianchen and Wu Chen. Mu Qianchen was at a loss and looked at Wu Chen as if asking for help. Okay, it's getting late, I have to go home and sleep, that's all. Wu Chen said. Thank you, brother. Thank you, sister-in-law. Lu Huzi said happily, and under his excitement, he even kowtowed twice to Wu Chen and Mu Qianchen. He got up and was about to take his brothers away. It was estimated that he would never come to this bar again in his life. Just leave like this, Wu Chen said lightly again. Lu Huzi froze, turned around, and said with a smile on his face, what are your orders? Do you understand the rules? Just leave like this. Made a mistake and not leaving anything behind. Wu Chen raised his eyes, looking directly at Lu Huzi, his gaze was dim. Lu Huzi understood, his face turned hard, he gritted his teeth, took a step forward, and took out a knife. Mu Qianchen was startled and quickly hid in Wu Chen's direction. Lu Huzi held the knife in his right hand and pressed the 5 fingers of his left hand on the table. Duo. With the knife down, Lu Huzi's face turned pale, but he didn't make a sound. He chopped off the little finger of his left hand. He dropped the knife, took out a few pieces of paper, covered the wound, looked at Wu Chen with a smile, and said, brother, is this fine? Yes. Wu Chen stood up, stretched his waist, and said, next time, you won't get leave with just this. Yes, yes, I understand. Lu Huzi nodded and bowed. Let's go. Wu Chen walked out, and all the younger brothers around him automatically moved out of the way, not daring to look at Wu Chen with their heads down. Mu Qianqin quickly followed Wu Chen, and straddled Wu Chen's arm, turning her head every 3 steps. Wu Chen didn't want to take her away. The matter was settled, and no one dared to touch Mu Qianqin. But Mu Qianqin was afraid. When the two walked out of the bar, a dozen cars had just stopped under the steps outside the bar gate. Most of them were commercial vehicles, off-road vehicles, and 2 supercars, a white Lamborghini and a red Ferrari. 40 or 50 people got off from more than a dozen cars, all holding sticks wrapped in newspapers in their hands. The leader dismounted from the Lamborghini sports car. This man was not tall, very thin, in his early 30s, wears glasses, and was well-mannered. He was Wang Zhuangyuan, who was well known in the East China Sea Gang. Wang Zhuangyuan was his street name. His real name was Wang Jie, and he was the top scorer in the Science College entrance examination in the East China Sea 15 years ago. Not long ago, Wang Zhuangyuan, who had just finished organizing the funeral for the elders in his family, was taking his key brothers to dinner. Suddenly, he received a report from people in the bar that Zhao Guaizi's people had come to his Huahei bar to make trouble, so he brought people to kill him. Mu Qianqin looked less than 20 years old, and Wu Chen also looked like an honest college student. Dozens of people including Wang Zhuangyuan paid no attention to the two of them and walked directly into the bar. The moment Wu Chen passed by Wang Zhuangyuan, he shook his hand, but no one noticed. The two walked down the steps to the curb. Wu Chen turned his head and looked up, seeing that Wang Zhuangyuan and others had gone in, so he took out the key from his pocket and pressed it. The lights of the white Lamborghini flashed and the lock was unlocked. Mu Qianqin was taken aback. Just took it from him, shall we go together? Wu Chen turned his head and said. Steal a car. Mu Qianqin hesitated for a moment, then nodded. The two get in the car. Wu Chen drove away in a Lamborghini and took Mu Qianqin with him. Stealing cars, Wu Chen often did it, because his life would be reset every day, so it didn't matter. The same was true if he dared to kill people casually. However, although Wu Chen had done evil, he had never done anything to kill innocent people indiscriminately. Trapped on the same day, it lasted for thousands of years. He had been desperate, crazy, and committed suicide hundreds of times, but he always woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning on the new July 7th. He couldn't even die, and finally, Wu Chen figured it out. He wanted to live every day to the fullest. He set various challenges for himself, and he wanted to make his endless life interesting and colorful. In half an hour, the white Lamborghini was soaring on the viaduct, and the speed had already exceeded 200 kilometers per hour. Although there were few cars in the middle of the night, it was also thrilling. Wow, ha 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 ha, Mu Qianqin laughed wildly and cheered happily. She recovered, she had a wild personality, and liked excitement, and what she experienced tonight could be said to be the most exciting day in her 18 years of life. She met an amazing man. After getting off the viaduct, the car slowed down and slowly stopped on the side of the road. Get out of the car and take a taxi home. Wu Chen supported the steering wheel and said. Let me take a taxi back. Mu Qianqin blinked. Aren't you going to take me back? It's too far away, I'm sleepy. Wu Chen said. Do you know where my home is? Of course, how many times have I told you that this is not the first time I know you? TCH, you're still lying to me. Mu Qianqin hummed and laughed again. After thinking for a while, she said with a strange smile, I'm not going back today. Quote. Then where are you going? Wu Chen asked. Wait a minute, Mu Qianqin said as she dug out a small bottle of makeup remover and cotton pads from her bag, and quickly wiped her face in the small mirror. Soon, her face became clean. What score am I now? Mu Qianqin turned her head and asked with a smile. Wu Chen smiled, turned his head and looked out the front window, and said, 9 points. Putting it into gear and starting, the Lamborghini sports car was on the road again. Chapter 4. A New Day. July 8th. Wu Chen's home was in an alley in the old city of Dongcheng district. The road in the alley was uneven, and the sports car was too low to drive in. So Wu Chen parked the Lamborghini on the side of the alley and walked in. Mu Qianchen held Wu Chen's arm, and walked with Wu Chen under the dim streetlight, looking around. "You live here, so low-key," Mu Qianchen said. "What's low-key? I used to live here, in my old house," Wu Chen said, and smiled again. "You don't think I'm a big shot, do you?" "Actually, I'm not." "Really?" Mu Qianchen said with a smile. "Then why are those people so afraid of you? You made a phone call, and he kowtowed to you. You even dared to steal someone else's Lamborghini. Don't you understand? A day that repeats itself for 1,000 years. Here, I can know too many things in various ways regardless of the consequences. For example, in Donghai, I know very well anyone with a slight social status. Actually, I know them, but they don't know me. I just have some information, I can use it to fight, and I don't have to worry about being discovered by them in the future, because it will be reset, understand? So, are you bluffing them?" Mu Qianchen stopped and let go of Wu Chen's arms. "That's right." Wu Chen shrugged, and said again, "What? Are you regretting it? You know I'm not a big shot, so you don't want to go home with me." After Wu Chen finished speaking, he put his hands in his pockets and walked home. Wu Chen never forced women. This was against his moral bottom line. He was once crazy, but after that, in order to prevent himself from sinking into madness, in order to prevent himself from falling into the devil's way, and falling into eternal pain, in order to live like a human being, he always insisted on being a human being. Tap. Suddenly, hurried footsteps came from behind. "I'm coming, hey." Wu Chen felt his back sinking. It was Mu Qianchen who trotted over, jumped directly onto his back, and let him carry her. "Why didn't you go?" Wu Chen pushed his hands back and continued to walk forward with Mu Qianchen on his back. "Why would I leave? I'm not a big shot. Why does that matter? You're so funny. Little girl, don't be too casual. You, a guy who claims to have slept with 10,000 women, tell that to me. Didn't you not believe what I said? It doesn't matter if I believe or not. I will take what you said as true, so it doesn't matter. No matter what we do today, after waking up, it will reset. I don't know you and nothing happened, right?" "Well, you're right." Wu Chen carried Mu Qianchen home, and only after opening the door and entering the room did he put Mu Qianchen down. Although it was an old house, the layout was not bad. The 3 bedrooms and 1 living room were quite large, but the decoration was very simple, and it was old decoration from more than 20 years ago. The house is so clean, it really doesn't look like a single man's house. Mu Qianchen turned around. "One day, I don't think it's easy to make a mess." Wu Chen said, raising his finger. "The bathroom is over there, and the hair dryer is on the 2nd floor to the left of the cabinet. There are no extra towels. Use mine." "Huh." Mu Qianchen turned around and said with puzzled eyes, "Why are you talking about this?" "Take a bath, don't you take a bath?" Wu Chen asked back. You bad guy, you asked me to take a shower first after coming here, what's on your mind?" Mu Qianchen walked over quickly, poking Wu Chen with her fingers. "What else? Why would you come to my house? To see the scenery?" Wu Chen laughed. Why are you so direct? You don't understand girls at all." Mu Qianchen blushed. "You said I don't understand girls." Wu Chen smiled strangely. "I understand you too well. I don't need to be cautious, and besides, time is running out." "Time is running out, what do you mean?" "I will fall asleep on time at 4 o'clock in the morning. Whether I want or not, I will go straight to sleep. When I wake up, it will be 7 o'clock in the morning. Do you understand? It's not yet 12, so more than 4 hours. 3 times. Wu Chen raised 3 fingers. "What 3 times?" Mu Qianchen didn't understand. "Didn't you have a boyfriend before? You don't understand this?" Wu Chen asked strangely. "When did I ever talk about a boyfriend?" Mu Qianchen was really puzzled. Wu Chen was stunned. The information was wrong. In the previous 1,000 years, Wu Chen met Mu Qianchen not once or twice, but maybe hundreds of times. He had heard that Mu Qianchen had a boyfriend. However, he never planned to attack Mu Qianchen before, so he did not conduct a comprehensive investigation on Mu Qianchen. Then who is Sun Haoran? Wu Chen asked directly. Wow, you even know that bastard. How many things my bitch best friend has told you about me? Didn't you date him? No. Then why did someone say that he is your boyfriend? Quote. We have a promised relationship. It was decided by my grandfather and his grandfather. When the old man said it verbally, how could it count? My parents didn't even recognize it. Then, when I was in junior high school, that bastard transferred to my school. I came to Donghai, and he told my classmates everywhere that I am his girlfriend, that's all. Then what? Then I asked my cousin to find someone to beat him up, and he transferred to another school and left Donghai. Oh, that's it, Wu Chen nodded. Sun Haoran was not from Donghai City, so Wu Chen did not investigate, and Wu Chen did not take the initiative to investigate Mu Qianchen. He only heard a few words from others, so he misunderstood. So, you're still that? Wu Chen asked with a delicate expression. Which one? Mu Qianchen was in a daze, unable to understand. Wu Chen didn't explain, and amidst Mu Qianchen's exclamation, he suddenly picked her up and walked directly to the bathroom. Ah, what are you doing? Let's take a shower together. You are bad. This night, Mu Qianchen finally understood that what Wu Chen said 3 times was referring to. It's dawn, 7 o'clock in the morning. Wu Chen woke up on time, staring blankly at the ceiling. Another reincarnation, like this every day, waking up early in the morning and staring at the ceiling in a daze, thinking about what he did yesterday, was his habit. Hey, bad guy, didn't you say that July 7th keeps repeating? It resets every day. Today is July 8th. How do you explain it? A girl's faint voice suddenly came from the side. Wu Chen's face, which was almost pale with shock, suddenly changed. He sat up abruptly and turned his head to look aside. Mu Qianchen, who was wrapped in a blanket, held a baseball bat in both hands, pouted, and stared fiercely at Wu Chen. Chapter 5. Get out of trouble. World, I'm coming. Wu Chen was completely dumbfounded. Why was Mu Qianchen still in his room? This was impossible. For 1,000 years, 365,000 days and nights, Wu Chen also felt reluctant to give up on women, but every time he woke up again, the pillow was empty. He was used to being alone when he woke up. HMPH. Did you expose me? You can't even speak, you big liar. Mu Qianchen looked fierce while holding a baseball bat. Being fierce didn't make people afraid, because Mu Qianchen's real appearance was very cute. After removing the heavy makeup, she had a childlike face, which was commonly known as a baby face, with big eyes, a high nose bridge, some baby fat on her cheeks, and fair skin. Boom! Wu Chen suddenly turned over, jumped to the ground, and rushed toward the bathroom. Don't run! Mu Qianchen thought that Wu Chen was going to the bathroom to hide and was going to chase after him when he got up, but when she was about to stand up, she said, "Ouch," and sat back. A little pain. Wu Chen ran into the bathroom. His clothes were in the bathroom. Yesterday he went in with Mu Qianchen in his arms, and came out with Mu Qianchen in his arms. During the process, both of their clothes were left in the bathroom. He quickly pulled out the phone from the coat. Wu Chen didn't even have an alarm clock at home. In modern society, fewer people would take the initiative to buy watches. They buy them for decoration, and most of them check the time by looking at their mobile phones. July 8th, July 8th, ha 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 ha, July 8th. Looking at the time, Wu Chen laughed, and burst into tears. He punched the wall with both hands, laughing constantly, almost insanely. The time displayed on the mobile phone, 7:03 a.m. on July 8th. Time was finally starting to tick. 1,000 years. Wu Chen even had a feeling of breaking out of the cage and regaining his freedom. No one knew how he survived the millennium. It would be reset every day, which meant that Wu Chen had an endless lifespan. He was not afraid of injury or death and could do anything in the world. However, because every day was repeated, although Wu Chen could do different things and meet different people, except that the memory could be preserved, everything else would start again and return to the original point. He couldn't establish any contacts, couldn't fall in love. At most, he could just sleep with them. His daily communication would not have any continuation. He could only start from scratch. Wu Chen once felt that he was a lucky one. He went racing cars, robbed banks, became a city hero, murdered people, sabotaged official affairs, provoked some big shots, and acted recklessly and lawlessly. He didn't think about the consequences, because there were no consequences. He thought he would be very carefree, but soon, he was tired. Anything he did would not be continued. He gradually lost the slightest sense of achievement and refreshment, and he began to doubt the meaning of his life, which seemed meaningless. He could do anything and had no taboos, but in fact, he couldn't do anything and couldn't affect anything, because it would be reset, and whatever he had done would be reset. The people killed by him would still appear before his eyes the next day. The skyscrapers he graffitied would be as clean as new the next day. The woman he slept with did not know him the next day. He stopped the robbery from happening, and it still happened the next day. The people he helped still needed to be helped the next day. He had infinite time to use different methods to repeatedly inquire about the secrets of this city, and even anyone in this world, and he could also try his best to make friends with anyone, and he would definitely succeed. But what happened? No result. He is tired, so depressed for a while. He felt like a lonely ghost wandering outside the three realms and not among the five elements. He didn't know the meaning of his existence. Or value. Ordinary people had only 100 years of life, but they had to experience birth, old age, sickness and death, joys and sorrows. There would be high-spirited moments, and there would also be difficult and sad moments. This was life. The happy smile of the mother when she learned that her son had a successful career, the honeymoon photo with the newlywed wife, the uneasiness when waiting outside the delivery room for her daughter to be born, the old man and his wife walking in the twilight full of fallen leaves, recalling the past, these were all life. This was the life that everyone would have, but Wu Chen would never get it. If he simply had an endless lifespan, then he would not be depressed, he could live forever, he could change the world at any moment, he would gain a sense of accomplishment, have friends, and have a lover. His life was valuable. But Wu Chen didn't have an endless lifespan, he lived forever in disguise because time would be reset. He attempted suicide. Hundreds of methods were tried. Taking poison, lying on the rails, jumping off a building, cutting his wrists, burning, putting him in a frying pan, every time he would fall into endless darkness after experiencing pain. Then he would wake up again, back to July 7, 2020 at 7 a.m. Everyone was afraid of death, but Wu Chen couldn't die even if he wanted to. Wu Chen was afraid that he would go crazy, and he also wanted to go crazy, because if he was crazy, there would be no pain. Fortunately, Wu Chen finally figured it out. He understood that although he would not have the slightest impact on this world, he could change anything and everything would be reset, but his memory would be preserved. So he could change himself. Although it still didn't make much sense, Wu Chen still learned hundreds of languages, mastered all mainstream musical instruments, and practiced fighting, car skills, spear skills, cooking skills, dancing, acting, his hacking skills. Everything was the best in the world. The Picasso paintings he copied were enough to be fake. His beauty and hairdressing skills were comparable to Mr. Tony's. He spent thousands of years training himself to be an all-rounder. In fact, he was still terrified in his heart. He was afraid that one day, after he learned everything he could learn, he would fall into a state where he didn't know what to do and doubted the meaning of his life. Although it was said that there was no limit to learning, due to the fact that it would be reset in one day, Wu Chen couldn't even do a complicated experiment, so he couldn't seek further knowledge. He couldn't learn everything at all. Fortunately, he made it through. Today, he finally escaped from the infinite cycle of time and space. Ha 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 ha, I'm coming out. Ha 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 ha, world, I'm coming. Wu Chen laughed wantonly, and he said the words like a madman, but they came from the deepest part of his heart. Ding! The host has passed the Millennium Test, and the time-space reincarnation system has been activated. Binding to the host. The system uses time and space points. The second reset on the same day consumes 2 time and space points. The third reset on the same day consumes 4 time and space points, and so on. Ding! The host currently has time and space points. 365,000 points. Wu Chen suddenly thought there was an ethereal voice, and before he could react, a data screen appeared in front of him. System host Wu Chen, eternal binding. Basic attributes: Strength 7, Speed 9, Endurance 8, Spirit 10,158. Time and space reset available. Current use consumes 1. Time and space points 365,000 points. Host ability: French LV9, English LV9, Piano LV9, Boxing LV9, Gun LV9, Fighting LV9, a total of 1354 items, which can be queried. Asterisk. Chapter 6. They came here. Here comes the system. Wu Chen had a big secret he never told anyone. Even in the millennium he repeated, he never mentioned it to anyone. That was, he was a time traveler. This was the Earth. Wu Chen's original world was also the Earth. Wu Chen knew that he had traveled to the parallel universe and obtained the golden finger, so he kept resetting the same day. It was July 7th when he crossed over, and it had always been such thereafter. In the beginning, Wu Chen really regarded the time reset as a cheat, but after that, he regarded it as punishment and torture. Now it seemed that he misunderstood. The golden finger was not officially opened until he lived through a millennium. Trial. You trapped me on the same day for 1,000 years just for a test. What the hell at $. Wu Chen said a bunch of dirty words, but the system was silent about it. Okay. Wu Chen sighed and smiled again. People have to look forward, to the future. Wu Chen was originally a person with no future, but now he had one, and he survived, so instead of complaining, it was better to make good use of this system. Read the data carefully. In terms of attributes, others were very ordinary, only the explosion of mental power was high. Because of the time reset, his body could not get any training and growth, only memory and soul could. Not to mention anything else, Wu Chen's memory was really good. He remembered everything from every day for thousands of years. I can reset the time at will now. Wu Chen asked in his heart. Although he had experienced 365,000 time resets and was once extremely in pain because of this, he was very excited now. Active reset and passive reset were 2 different things. They were very different. Passive was being stuck in a day. To take the initiative was to reset the day if you were not satisfied with it, and let the time pass naturally if you were satisfied. Ding! Reminding the host that it is not reset randomly. The host needs to consume the time and space points to reset the time. The time settlement point is 7 o'clock in the morning. Consume 1 point at a time. Wu Chen now had 365,000 points. What's the difference? Wu Chen would not reset the time for no reason. He felt that he would not be able to use up so much time and space point until he dies. Ding! Reminding the host again. If the host will reset the same day repeatedly, the amount of time and space points consumed will be doubled each time. The misty voice reminded Wu Chen in his mind. I understand, Wu Chen said in his heart. In fact, doubling is scary. Very horrible. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. The first few times doubling did not seem to be much, but the further you go, the 16th reset on the same day, that was, the 15th doubling, would consume 32,768 points. After that, it was 65,536 points, 131,073 points, 262,144 points, 524,288 points. So, if he resetted too many times on the same day, the time and space points would be consumed in its entirety. As long as you don't reset the same day multiple times, though, you should be fine. And Wu Chen really couldn't think of a reason for him to reset a certain day many times. Even if he wanted to solve some troubles, he would just do it all over again. He couldn't just do it a dozen times. Wu Chen looked at his host ability again. How to make it appear. Focus on and blink. Wu Chen did as he did, and the data interface showed, turning into a huge list. There were a total of 1,354 abilities, and an average person probably had more than a dozen abilities in a lifetime, such as being able to drive, cook, etc., as well as the knowledge and abilities learned in school, and the level was not too high. Even for an excellent person, it would be nice to have dozens of abilities. Wu Chen had more than 1,000 abilities, and the general level was extremely high. Among them, there were 103 kinds of language abilities, that was, 103 languages, and all of them were LV9. Because languages were difficult to learn, one needed to be persistent all year round, and Wu Chen needed to pass the time, so he liked to learn languages. However, after learning more languages, Wu Chen found that after he had mastered more than 10 languages, learning a new language felt very, very easy. The more he learned, the easier it would be to learn other languages. In the future, there was a millennium, 365,000 days and nights. Wu Chen looked at the big list of data, and suddenly felt a huge sense of accomplishment in his heart. He lived up to the 365,000 days of constant reincarnation. These 1,354 abilities were the best proof. In fact, if Wu Chen had so many abilities before, he wouldn't be proud, and he wouldn't have any achievements. It really didn't make sense, but now it was different. Time started to flow, and he starts to move forward. His abilities would come in handy. What would they be for? Nothing more than fame and fortune. A bigger house, more money, and a higher social status were the pursuits of all people in their lives. Some people say that being ordinary is good, and being ordinary is a blessing. Wu Chen considered himself an ordinary person. He didn't agree with this sentence. If one had the ability to continue to move forward, who would be willing to be ordinary? This was nothing but an excuse for the incompetent to cover up their incompetence. Of course, it would not be wrong to say this sentence from some special populations. Those people were not incompetent, but experienced ups and downs. They were not incompetent, but enlightened. I suddenly thought of a question, Wu Chen suddenly said in his heart. You said that the 1,000-year reincarnation is a test, so how can you fail this test? I won't die, suicide will be reset, and everyone can pass it right. Ding! Reminding the host that the cosmic time and the host's physical condition are reset, but the host's soul is not included. If the host falls into madness during the test, the soul will start to weaken until the soul disappears. Understood. Wu Chen raised his eyebrows and smiled. He was a little thankful, fortunately, that he was strong enough. He was indeed almost completely insane for a while, but he survived, figured it out, and began to actively learn and change himself. What's the matter with you? A cautious voice suddenly came from outside the door. Wu Chen turned his head and saw that it was Mu Qianchen who was wearing a blanket. She was still holding the baseball bat, but she didn't have the fierce look before, but a worried expression. Mu Qianchen was indeed worried about Wu Chen's mental state. At the bar yesterday, she thought Wu Chen was crazy, but then she thought Wu Chen was a liar, a very interesting liar. After she woke up this morning, her anger was actually faked. She had never believed in the time reset that Wu Chen said, so naturally, she would not be angry because she was cheated. But after Wu Chen woke up, he frantically ran into the bathroom, started laughing crazily, yelled some inexplicable words, and there was the sound of smashing the wall. He seemed to be crazy. Mu Qianchen had actually walked outside the bathroom door for quite a while, looking at Wu Chen the whole time. She saw that Wu Chen's hands were covered in blood. She also saw Wu Chen standing there in a daze after going berserk. His expression was sometimes angry, sometimes excited, and sometimes joyful. Mu Qianchen was scared, because she felt that Wu Chen might really be a mentally ill patient, and his condition was very serious. Not only did he have paranoia, but he also had violent tendencies. After all, he smashed his hands against the wall, but he didn't seem to know it. I'm fine, very fine. Wu Chen smiled at Mu Qianchen outside the bathroom. Your hand, Mu Qianchen pointed and became even more worried. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Wu Chen raised his hands to look, only to realize that both his fists were covered in blood, and his skin was torn apart. It hurt, but it's not that painful. Wu Chen was a man who had committed suicide hundreds of times and even jumped into a frying pan. His tolerance for pain might be the highest in the entire world. Wu Chen looked at his hands and frowned slightly. This kind of injury was estimated to take 10 days and a half months to heal, and there would be scars on the hands. Boom boom boom. Suddenly there was a loud knock on the door. Wu Chen walked out of the bathroom to look around, and asked, "Who is it?" "We want to ask, did you see someone driving a sports car here yesterday?" "A white Lamborghini. We are looking for 2 people, a man and a girl. They should live near here," the person outside the door said in a rough voice. "Fuck, here it is." Mu Qianchen's face changed drastically, and she was a little scared. Wu Chen signaled Mu Qianchen to keep quiet and shouted outside, "No, I haven't seen anyone." "Open the door, we need to take a look," the person outside replied. Wu Chen didn't open the door, but quickly ran to the window and looked into the alley outside the window. He saw many strange young people looking around, coming in and out of different units. His house was on the 5th floor, and he could see a white Lamborghini parked outside the alley. At this moment, there were more than a dozen people gathered next to the Lamborghini, and 2 others were squatting, checking whether the car was damaged. "It's Wang Zhuangyuan's men. Open the door. Why don't you speak? Could it be you? Open the door," the person outside the door shouted suddenly. Boom, boom, boom. They started banging on the door harder. Chapter 7. Actively reset for the first time, take the road and run. Wu Chen knew it was going to be bad. He never considered the consequences before doing things, and killing people was not a problem, because it would be reset. But this time began to pass. Wu Chen blinded 1 person yesterday, cut 1 person's throat, not sure if he could be rescued, and even borrowed the name of a big shot, pretended to be a big guy, and stole Wang Zhuangyuan's car before leaving. It could be said that there was a lot of trouble. Although he could still reset the time, and it was active. But July 7th had passed, and now it was July 8th, Wu Chen couldn't reset yesterday. This follow-up trouble, if it was not handled well, Wu Chen would either be beaten to death by people on the road or sentenced to be shot for murder. Thinking of this, Wu Chen smiled. Life is so interesting. Wu Chen looked out the window again, but he didn't see Wang Zhuangyuan coming in person. He was probably still on his way, but dozens of his younger brothers came. Wu Chen didn't know if Lu Huzi revealed his identity to Wang Zhuangyuan, who arrived after him yesterday. If he didn't say it, then Wang Zhuangyuan would ask his men to do the job. It could be said that someone dared to move his car in the East China Sea. They were desperate. Wang Zhuangyuan's real name was Wang Jie. He was the #1 student in science in the East China Sea in the college entrance examination 15 years ago. He should have become a top student with a bright future, but during the summer vacation after the college entrance examination, his parents were beaten because of demolition, and his father was paralyzed. He stabbed someone in a rage. The stabbing incident of the #1 student in the college entrance examination once made headlines. Because of this, Wang Jie was imprisoned for 3 years. After he was released from prison, he started to mess around and made a name for himself. He had no power, no connection, no background, and no money, but he had a high IQ that most thugs do not have. The current Wang Zhuangyuan was a well-known figure on the East China Sea Road, with great influence. Wu Chen knew how to deal with Wang Zhuangyuan, but this time, the timing was wrong. In fact, Wang Zhuangyuan was a small troublesome problem this time. The big problem was that Wu Chen borrowed Mr. Li's name yesterday, pretending to be a tiger. If this matter got out, it will be a big problem and a big trouble. It was estimated that at that time, he would be hunted down by all the people in the entire East China region. Really exciting. Boom, boom, boom. The people outside were still banging on the door, and hearing the movement outside, it seemed that there were already several people. What should I do? Mu Qianchen was frightened and trotted 2 steps towards Wu Chen, but fell to the ground with an oops, tears streaming down her face. She was very weak now, and she was still in some pain, so she couldn't run at all. Wu Chen hurried over to help Mu Qianchen up and saw that her elbows were bruised. Mu Qianchen was inconvenient, and she was wearing a blanket before she had any clothes on. Wu Chen's hands were injured, and the door was blocked by someone, and the door was about to be knocked open. What should I do? I'm afraid. Mu Qianchen cried. It's okay, let's do it again. Wu Chen rubbed her hair and smiled. Time and space reset. Ding! The host resets time and space for the first time on July 8, 2020. This time, 1 point of time and space point is consumed, and the remaining time and space points are 364,999 points. Asterisk. July 8, 2020 at 7 o'clock in the morning. Wu Chen opened his eyes, looked at the ceiling, and smiled from the bottom of his heart. 7 o'clock was the time settlement point, and it was also the reset time point. If he reset before 7 o'clock, the reset was actually the previous day, and after 7 o'clock, it would be the current day. Hey, bad guy, didn't you say that July 7th keeps repeating? It resets every day. Today is July 8th. How do you explain it? A girl's faint voice suddenly came from the side. Wu Chen turned his head to look, and saw Mu Qianchen, who was wrapped in a blanket holding a baseball bat in both hands, pouting, staring at him fiercely. Don't you know that I'm a liar? When did you believe what I said? Wu Chen said with a smile, grabbed the baseball bat as soon as he stretched out his hand, and put it on the table. HMPH. It's not fun at all. You don't cooperate with others. Mu Qianchen was furious. Wu Chen reached out his hand to Mu Qianchen as a gesture. Bad guy. Mu Qianchen patted Wu Chen's arm, laid down obediently, and kissed Wu Chen on the cheek. Do you regret it? Wu Chen asked. What do I regret? Mu Qianchen was puzzled. Do you regret going home with me? Well, I regret it, so hurry up and reset the time. Hurry. Huh, Mu Qianchen said, but in a teasing tone, not really regretting. I'm a man who has slept with 10,000 women, don't you regret it? Wu Chen asked with a squinting smile. Is this important? I didn't say I want to fall in love with you. Mu Qianchen gave Wu Chen a big roll of her eyes. I'm afraid you'll fall in love with me. Bah, good idea. Remember, you slept with me last night. Tisk. All right, Wu Chen said and sat up, going to the bathroom to get clothes. He threw Mu Qianchen's over and said, Get dressed, we should go. Where are we going? I need to sleep again. Mu Qianchen said, covering her head with the quilt like a robe. We got into a lot of trouble yesterday. You know I lied to you. I'm not very capable. I guess with Wang Zhuangyuan's power, he will find me soon. If we don't run away, we will be in big trouble. Wu Chen smiled lightly. Mu Qianchen sat up all of a sudden and dressed quickly. You really don't know how to be sympathetic to others. You clearly know that yesterday was the first time for me. I haven't finished healing, it hurts. Mu Qianchen put on her clothes and threw Wu Chen a toilet paper. Stop talking nonsense. If you don't leave, you will be beaten. Wu Chen smiled and went over to hug Mu Qianchen. Set off. He went out with Mu Qianchen in his arms and walked through the alley with Mu Qianchen in his arms. Along the way, some uncles and aunts who came back from shopping early in the morning saw it, but Mu Qianchen didn't care about their stares. She was really wild and outgoing. A white Lamborghini was parked just outside the alley. Wang Zhuangyuan's people haven't come over yet, but they're probably coming soon. The two get in the car. Where are we going? Mu Qianchen asked after fastening her seatbelt, and said in a low voice, Are you going to throw it away where no one is around? Guess. Wu Chen smiled at Mu Qianchen. You always talk sweetly, and you're also mysterious. Forget it, I won't ask. You'll just make up stories. Mu Qianchen gave Wu Chen a middle finger. In fact, what she said was exactly why she found Wu Chen interesting. Of course, she was able to go home with Wu Chen not only because Wu Chen was interesting, but because Wu Chen saved her. A little girl at her age liked to fantasize about Prince Charming, a hero saving the beauty and the like, or having a vigorous love affair while young. However, because of rebellion and rebellious psychology, Mu Qianchen would not admit this to Buzz. Wu Chen just started the car, and before he hit the gas pedal, there was a sound of a booming gas pedal behind him. He looked in the rearview mirror. There were several off-road vehicles, and the leader was a Mercedes-Benz G. He glanced at the license plate and Wu Chen knew that it was Wang Zhuangyuan's people. They came and saw the white Lamborghini. Interesting. Wu Chen muttered with a smile on his face. Sit still. Switching modes, shifting gears, stepping on the accelerator, all in one go. Launch. Lamborghini rushed out and began to accelerate to the limit when it got on the main road. Ah, you're crazy, it's morning, and the road is full of cars. Mu Qianchen screamed. Look at the back, they are chasing us, it will be miserable if we are caught. Wu Chen tilted his head and said. Mu Qianchen glanced at the rearview mirror, and sure enough, there were several cars behind, also driving very fast, speeding up to catch up, but the Lamborghini was faster, so the distance was getting farther and farther. Don't talk, I'll make a call. Wu Chen said, took out his cell phone, and dialed a number. It went through. Speak. An extremely cold and capable female voice came from the phone. Chapter 8. The woman with a cold voice and domineering personality. Wu Chen had no other people's numbers on his mobile phone except those he met before July 7, 2020. Because they couldn't be saved, they would be gone after reset. However, Wu Chen memorized the phone numbers of everyone he knew in the Millennium Reincarnation and memorized hundreds of thousands of mobile phone numbers. For him, it was also a very fun way to kill time. Only the memory would not be reset, so Wu Chen's memory could be said to be used to the extreme. There is a traitor on your side. He has been lurking by your side for 2 years. In addition to monitoring your every move, he is also preparing to steal the research and development information of your company's latest product as ordered. Wu Chen was driving furiously while talking on his phone. Who are you? There was a hint of suspicion in the woman's cold voice. How do you know this number? She thought that her subordinates had something urgent to report to her, so she called her private number, and the caller ID showed blank. She didn't think much about the unfamiliar number. But Wu Chen's words made her react. If you dare to talk to her in this tone, it must be from a stranger. This person seemed to know something, but she is more suspicious of this person's identity. I think we should meet and talk. Wu Chen said. You, who are you? The woman repeated her words mechanically, her tone aggravated. You will know when we meet. There is a traitor by your side. Let me remind you kindly. You don't want to lose the bet, do you? You should know who I am, and I will find you. Sister, I said we could meet, why are you still looking for me? Don't threaten me, okay? Don't you want to know who the traitor is? I don't even know who you are. Why should I believe your words? I'm a good person, and I happen to know some things, so I kindly remind you that if you can pay me a considerable information fee, I can tell you more. For example, something about your brother. I will know who you are. Beep beep. The woman hung up immediately after finishing speaking. Wu Chen was not surprised, he knew that she had this kind of character. Wu Chen, too fast. Wu Chen just put down the phone, supported the steering wheel with both hands, and Mu Qianchen's frightened voice came from the side. Lamborghini was extremely fast and had a strong sense of pushing back. Mu Qianchen leaned against the back of the seat, grasped the sides with both hands, and looked outside with a pale face. This was the morning rush hour. After entering the main road, there are more and more cars on the road. The speed of Lamborghini was beyond description. Just now Mu Qianchen wanted to remind him that Wu Chen was driving so fast, and he was making a phone call while driving. Mu Qianchen's heart would jump out of fright, but she was very afraid that if she made a sound suddenly, it would distract Wu Chen even more. Mu Qianchen liked excitement, and she had also raced, but it was always at night, on the unmanned winding mountain road. Playing like this in broad daylight was really too scary. Don't worry, I will slow down after I get rid of the people behind us. Wu Chen said and kicked the accelerator again. They have been thrown away, Mu Qianchen said. She looked in the rearview mirror. The few off-road vehicles before were no longer behind, and they had been thrown away long ago. Of course, the speed of an off-road vehicle could be compared with that of a sports car. And they didn't dare to play with their lives like Wu Chen. "Well, we're almost there," Wu Chen continued. "I'll slow down after the next intersection." As he said that, Wu Chen glanced at the time, and stepped on the accelerator again. The speed was already close to 204. There's no need, how about, Mu Qianchen felt like she was going to die. "If we don't speed up, we will miss the green light at the next intersection," Wu Chen explained. 10 seconds later, the white Lamborghini entered the intersection of Jianqi Road and Fuming Street, flicked its tail in the middle of the wide intersection, and turned right into Jianqi Road. The moment the white Lamborghini drove into Jianqi Road, the green light at the intersection turned red. Wu Chen knew every road in the city of Donghai. He knew the changing time of traffic lights at all intersections, and knew when and where there would be traffic jams. His hurricane routes we all planned in his mind. In the morning rush hour, he avoided all possible traffic jam routes. Because he drove a sports car, the ground was too low, so he couldn't go on bad roads. He had plans. The speed of the car began to decrease and finally remained at around 80. This kind of speed was still a bit fast in the urban area, but less scary. Mu Qianchen breathed a sigh of relief and raised her small fist to punch Wu Chen's shoulder, but she didn't punch and just gestured for fear of affecting Wu Chen's driving. "I'm going to be scared to death by you, bad guy. The situation is urgent, someone is chasing after us." Wu Chen smiled. "Aren't you afraid of a car accident? And, do you know that we might be on the news? When the whole country knows it, we're finished. There won't be a car accident, and there won't be any news, either. This car is Wang Zhuangyuan's smuggled license plate car, so he will never call the police, and once this car appears on the internet news, Wang Zhuangyuan will definitely use his connections to suppress it and delete it in minutes. Wang Zhuangyuan has such a powerful influence." "Of course. Then you were doomed. Why did you steal the car? It would have been better if you just walked away yesterday." "Ha," Wu Chen smiled without explaining. After more than 10 minutes. Near Qinghai Park, Nancheng District, Donghai City, a white Lamborghini stopped at the intersection. "Get out of the car and go home," Wu Chen said. Mu Qianchen, who had been focusing on Wu Chen, realized that the car was parked near her home. Her home was in the Qinghai Courtyard villa complex next to Qinghai Park. "You really know my family?" Mu Qianchen asked in surprise. Wu Chen nodded with a smile. "How many times have I told you that I already know you? Making things up again." "Oh, I got it." Mu Qianchen suddenly realized, "It was my bitch best friend." "Who told you?" "Right. You son of a bitch can talk about everything. Get out of the car," Wu Chen urged. What are you going to do? Take me there. I don't want to go home. I am being hunted down. You want to be hunted down with me. If you are caught by them, you will be killed first. Don't say I didn't warn you," Wu Chen threatened. "Then, all right." Mu Qianchen got out of the car in fear, and leaned over while holding the car door. "Then be careful." Wu Chen made an okay gesture. "Call me." After Mu Qianchen finished speaking, she closed the car door. Wu Chen kicked the gas pedal. Mu Qianchen turned around and was about to go home. She took a step and seemed to remember something. She turned around abruptly and waved at the Lamborghini that was going away, but the car had already gone far away, and she couldn't help it. "What the hell?" Mu Qianchen patted herself on the forehead, almost crying stupidly. She did remember a very, very important thing. She didn't have any contact information for Wu Chen. No phone number, no WeChat, nothing. After being played by Wu Chen all night, he didn't even leave a phone number. Oh, that's right. Mu Qianchen immediately turned to her mobile phone, and then dialed the number of her best friend. She always thought that Wu Chen was sent by her best friend and that what happened later was an accident. She struck up a conversation. It must have been arranged by her best friend. So she had to ask her best friend. Half an hour later, Wu Chen drove the white Lamborghini into the underground parking lot of an office building, turned off the engine, put the back of the seat down, laid down on his back, and closed his eyes to rest his mind. Waiting for the call, he knew that that woman would definitely take the initiative to call. Facing all kinds of troubles at present, whether it was Zhao Guizi or Wang Zhuangyuan, it was a small problem, and the big problem lied with Mr. Li. If he could solve Mr. Li, he could solve everything. So the first contact Wu Chen chose to establish was the woman he took the initiative to call to contact. This was a woman with a face value of 9, but her charm was almost invincible, and she was extremely powerful and domineering. Of course, Wu Chen had slept with her, more than once. He repeatedly met her on the same day and slept with her on the same day, many, many times. Her name was Li Ruobing. She's the one who could call the wind and rain for Mr. Li in the East China Sea, his sister. From the outside world, Mr. Li seemed to be an awesome character, but at home, he was actually very afraid of his sister. So Wu Chen didn't mind at all. He just had to become Mr. Li's brother-in-law. Ring. The phone rang. Wu Chen sat up and looked at it, then smiled. She was calling. Chapter 9. Li Ruobing's order. Come to the 7th block of CBD in Nanchang. The phone was connected, and Li Ruobing said directly. Her tone was cold and could not be refused. I'm already downstairs, Wu Chen said lightly. Li Ruobing stopped breathing before she said, I'll send someone to pick you up. The underground garage, white Lamborghini. Wu Chen hung up the phone after speaking. It could be said that it was extremely difficult for a stranger to meet a big name like Li Ruobing, but for Wu Chen, it was easy to meet any big man in the East China Sea. All it took was a phone call and some words. He knew the secrets of all the people with status, he just needed to mention them casually, and the other party will be hooked. In the previous call, it was the gamble that really prompted Li Ruobing to call. Very few people knew about the bet, and it was impossible for outsiders to know about it. Soon, a tall, thin man in a black suit and sunglasses came to the parking lot and knocked on the window of the white Lamborghini. Wu Chen also knew this person. One of Li Ruobing's ace bodyguards was a retired scout from the Ace Special Forces. His name was Zhou Huan. He was married and had a 5-year-old son. Let's go. Wu Chen got out of the car and said. Zhou Huan took a big look at Wu Chen. Wu Chen was dressed in ordinary clothes and was very young. He looked like a college student with little money. Although he was puzzled why the boss would let him go downstairs to pick up such a person, he didn't ask much. Please, sir. The bodyguard Zhou Huan signaled and walked ahead to lead the way. Nanchang CBD was the business district of Donghai, all of which were high-end office buildings with strict management. If you don't swipe your employee card, you won't be able to get in. Zhou Huan took Wu Chen into the elevator and finally came to the 31st floor. The rent here was outrageously high. Normal startups start a company but rent a small room, and Li Ruobing came here to start a company 3 years ago, and rented the 5th floor. And this was just a part of Li Ruobing's company, which belonged to the office. She also had a super factory with an investment of 1 billion yuan in the industrial zone. Because the 5th floor belonged to a company, it had been renovated as a whole. The corporate logo of Magic Color Fashion could be seen everywhere, and there were office workers coming and going everywhere, very busy. Beautiful men and women were everywhere. The bodyguard led Wu Chen up the stairs again, all the way to the 33rd floor. There were no employees here. Instead, there were bodyguards in black suits everywhere. If Wu Chen didn't know who he was going to meet, he would definitely have misunderstood that he was going to meet a certain boss. In fact, Li Ruobing was indeed a big boss, but she was not in the gang. On the surface, she was just a star entrepreneur and female president of Donghai City. On the 33rd floor, the president's office. 2 bodyguards in black suits who looked like goalkeepers stood guard on the left and right. Boss, someone is here, Zhou Huan said to the inside. Come in. A cold voice came from the office. Zhou Huan took Wu Chen in. The office was huge, with a beautiful view from the floor-to-ceiling windows, but there were not many furnishings in the room, and the sofa for guests was far away from the desk. It was you who called me. Li Ruobing put down her pen and looked at Wu Chen quietly. She was very surprised. Wu Chen's appearance was too different from what she had imagined. A stranger who called her suddenly could tell something that only a few people knew her identity, and spoke calmly. She thought he would be a mature and stable man, probably a middle-aged man. Wu Chen was too young, just like a student. Wu Chen was also looking at Li Ruobing. Tall and slender, with black long straight hair, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, her makeup was very glamorous, and her aura was very strong. She just sat there without speaking, and one could feel that she was strong and difficult to touch. Such a powerful aura made it easy for people to overlook her beauty. "Boss Li, it's a pleasure to meet you." Wu Chen smiled. Then he began to pace and observe in the office on his own, as if he was in his own home, walking casually, looking casually, and even circling around the desk, passing behind Li Ruobing. Bodyguard Zhou Huan looked at Li Ruobing and asked what Li Ruobing's orders were with his eyes. Wu Chen's performance was too arrogant. Although he didn't do anything, it was arrogant to be so casual in front of Li Ruobing. "Go out first," Li Ruobing said to Zhou Huan. Zhou Huan went out. Li Ruobing looked at Wu Chen, who had already walked to the sofa and sat down, raising his legs. "Wu Chen, right," Li Ruobing said, picking up a document on the table. 22 years old, graduated from the computer department of Donghai University, father Wu Dahai, mother Zhang Shouan, run a ramen restaurant in a small county. You have a younger sister, named Wu Zhao. She is currently in high school." "Pa," snapped. Wu Chen smiled and applauded, and said, "Boss Li really has great powers." In less than an hour, she investigated so clearly. Wu Chen was not surprised at all. He knew Li Ruobing's power. His mobile phone number was registered with real name authentication, so it is very easy for powerful people to check his background. The difference was the length of time. "I thought someone used your SIM card, but it was really you, an ordinary, university graduate." Li Ruobing dropped the information and looked directly at Wu Chen. She was naturally very puzzled in her heart. Wu Chen had no background, so ordinary. "It doesn't matter what my identity is." Wu Chen tilted his head and smiled. "Let me make a long story short. Give me 10 million, and I'll tell you who the traitor is." "Who sent you here?" Li Ruobing asked. She seemed to have no interest in the traitor, Wu Chen said, but she always felt that there was something wrong with Wu Chen. "I'm alone. You can think of me as an information businessman. I know a lot of things that you will be interested in and care about. You give me money, I'll tell you the info. Fair trade." Wu Chen said. "A stranger suddenly ran over to me and called someone a traitor, asked me for 10 million, and said it was a fair deal. Do you think it makes sense?" Li Ruobing smiled, then became cold in an instant and said, "I warn you, if you don't give me a satisfactory answer, you won't leave here alive." As Li Ruobing said that, she opened the drawer and took something. Boom! She slapped a black pistol on the table. This woman was always direct. Moreover, she really dared to kill people in the office. Hiss! "Wow! Want to kill me?" Wu Chen gasped, but then smiled in surprise. He raised his hand, shook the things in his hand, and said, "Without this, how could you kill me?" "What?" Wu Chen held in his hand was a magazine. Li Ruobing's face changed, and she glanced at her pistol. Sure enough, the magazine was not in it. "You, when?" Li Ruobing stood up suddenly. Chapter 10. I know everything about you. Li Ruobing's eyes widened, with surprise and uncertainty in her beautiful eyes. She remembered that when Wu Chen just came in, he walked around and looked around the desk. That was the only time he approached the desk. But how did he take the magazine away? The pistol was in the drawer. How did he know the pistol was in the drawer? Even if he knew, how could he have taken the magazine away and left the gun in the drawer the moment he walked by? "Boss Li, calm down, this doesn't look like you anymore." Wu Chen smiled and threw the magazine on the coffee table. "I have no malicious intentions. I came to you for money. This is a deal, I hope you understand." Li Ruobing slowly sat back in the boss chair. She realized that she had lost her composure in front of a strange man. As Wu Chen said, "It's not like her. Can we talk?" Wu Chen asked. "A traitor." Li Ruobing calmed down completely. You say there is a traitor beside me. 10 million, I'll tell you. Wu Chen said the price again. In fact, he took the initiative to withdraw the money, emphasizing that it was a business, just to reduce Li Ruobing's psychological defense. Everything needed motivation. Wu Chen approached Li Ruobing so recklessly, there must always be a motive, and it was extremely reasonable for it to be money. If you want to get closer to someone quickly, in addition to getting to know the other person, you also need an extremely suitable and appropriate time. First impressions were very important. Wu Chen once slept with a beautiful woman whom he only knew once on July 7, which was repeated repeatedly. The reason why he was able to succeed was that he was able to find the best opportunity after investigation. The other party would not have any vigilance against him and would not be on guard. And this time to see Li Ruobing, it was obviously impossible to plan in advance, and Wu Chen did not want to reset July 8 many times. So now he changed his way to get in touch with Li Ruobing. Although this caused Li Ruobing to be extremely wary of him, given Wu Chen's understanding of Li Ruobing, it was still very easy to sleep with her. The last time he slept with Li Ruobing was over 100 years ago, not to mention, Wu Chen really missed it. 10 million, what kind of traitor do you think is worth my 10 million? Li Ruobing showed a strong smile. Also, even if what you said is true, and there is really a traitor around me, I can investigate by myself. I don't need you. It's not been a day or two since you've been investigating the traitors around you, right? Have you found it? Wu Chen said. You, Li Ruobing's expression changed again. Yes, she had long known that there is a traitor around her, and she had been investigating, but she had not found out. There is only half a month left before the new product launch. This person will find a way to get the research and development materials before the launch. Your opponent will take the first step and ruin your launch. You don't want to lose the bet. Right? Wu Chen had an expression of being convinced of Li Ruobing. If he wanted to conquer a strong woman like Li Ruobing, she must be stronger than her. Of course, it could not be blind arrogance. It had to be someone with reason, evidence, and ability, pressing her down. Li Ruobing looked at Wu Chen expressionlessly. 10 million, I'll tell you who the traitor is. Wu Chen continued, if you are willing to add another 10 million, I can tell you something about your brother. This matter involves your brother's personal safety. He's about to have an accident, do you know? You want to scare me? Li Ruobing raised her eyebrows and adjusted her gold-rimmed glasses. No, 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 I'm not scaring you. I know you. You don't take hard things. You dare to scold your old man in public, so I can't threaten you. Wu Chen kept smiling. You seem to know me very well. Li Ruobing narrowed her eyes. Of course, I'm an information businessman. I know everyone I want to contact very well. Wu Chen said with a smile. Then tell me, what else do you know about me? Are you sure you want to listen? Speak. Li Ruobing, 27 years old, chairman and president of Symphony Fashion Group, graduated from Harvard Business School, returned to China at the age of 23, founded Symphony Fashion Group, mainly engaged in high-end cosmetics, and currently has a net worth of about 2 billion. Wu Chen seemed to have finished speaking. That's all, Li Ruobing said with a mocking tone. You can easily search the internet for such shitty information. You are the granddaughter of Li family head, but because you are a girl, you are not favored. Your grandfather favored boys over girls. You felt that you were treated differently when you were very young, but you refused to accept it. You are determined to strive for success and must prove to everyone that women can be stronger than men. Wu Chen's next words made Li Ruobing's face change again and again. You have been very manly since you were young. When you were young, boys who fought in gangs were afraid of you. Even your younger brother, who grew up with you and was the most favored, was also afraid of you. You refused to succumb to fate, so you studied hard and did well in your studies. However, after all, you did not escape the curse of the big family. When you were 23 years old, your family tricked you back on the grounds that your mother was seriously ill. Actually, they tricked you into coming back to get married. Your grandfather decided to marry you. Yes, he wants you to marry the young master of the Nangguang Ding family, Ding Ruolong. Your mother has always been partial to you. Your mother is from the Northwest Sun family. It is also because of the marriage of the big family that she married your father. Her natal family has the ability. So your mother still has the right to speak in your family. But this time, even your mother stood opposite you. She hoped that you could marry Ding Ruolong, but you refused. When they forced you at home, you flipped the table in front of everyone, scolded your grandfather for being old, your uncle slapped you, and you slapped him back. To be honest, I really admire you. Wu Chen laughed. He said again, you wanted to leave immediately, but your mother forced you to marry, so the final result of this matter is to make a bet with you. For industries that are not involved, each depends on their ability. In 5 years, whoever makes the largest enterprise will win. So you founded Symphony Fashion. You said that you will not get married, and you will never in this life. Married women are very sad. But you changed your mind later and said that even if you marry, you must marry a man who is stronger than yourself. So if you lose, you will marry Ding Ruolong, and if you win, you will have a free life. No one will force you after that. You have worked very hard these few years. Maybe it's because you're really talented, and you've made a name for yourself in the field of fashion and makeup. Besides, you've had 3 boyfriends in the past 4 years, but these 3 men eventually fell into ruin. After leaving you, one committed suicide, and the other 2's families were ruined. Actually, they are all fake. You deliberately picked them up as a shield, but Ding Ruolong is a narrow-minded person. He knows they are all your fake boyfriends, but he still made a move, and as a result, there is no opposite sex around you, who dare to get too close to you. Wu Chen paused here, observing Li Ruobing's expression. Actually, you're not short-sighted. Wu Chen gave a big shot and Li Ruobing said again, you wear glasses just to create a sense of distance from others. Your strength, your domineering, and your seriousness have always had a big impact on you. Li Ruobing clenched her fists suddenly, and her eyes flashed with a dangerous light. I know, after I tell you this, I can only have 2 results. I know you too well, I have already made you feel threatened, so, either control me or make me disappear, right? Wu Chen directly pierced Li Ruobing's mind. You know and dare to say it. Li Ruobing asked back. Wealth accompanies danger, doesn't it? Wu Chen said with a smile, I also know that you usually keep 3 guns in the office. Let me guess, are the other 2 guns on me now? Li Ruobing squeezed and clenched her fists, her joints turned white. She didn't like this feeling of being seen through by others, this feeling of being oppressed by others. Boom! Just then, there was a knock on the door. The atmosphere in the office relaxed. Come in, Li Ruobing said coldly. A tall and thin middle-aged man entered the door, holding a folder in his hand, walking in a hurry. He paid attention to Wu Chen, didn't look much, and walked quickly to the edge of the desk. Boss, you need to sign this document, the tall, thin, middle-aged man said. This person was Feng Yan, Li Ruobing's senior assistant, and it was naturally his confidant who knocked on the door to disturb Li Ruobing when he was talking to someone. Li Ruobing quickly glanced at the document, flipped through a few pages, then picked up a pen and began to sign. At this moment, Wu Chen stood up suddenly, picked up the magazine on the coffee table, walked quickly to the desk, and picked up the pistol. He loaded the magazine, loaded the bullets, and opened the safety, all in one go. Too fast. Suddenly, Wu Chen grabbed Feng Yan's neck, pressed his head on the table, and pressed the gun against the back of his head. How much money did the surname Ding pay you? You actually won't betray your boss. Huh, Wu Chen said, hitting Feng Yan hard on the back of the head, and he was bloody. Li Ruobing was startled, got up and took a step back, and shouted, come in. The door opened all of a sudden, and the bodyguards outside saw the situation, all took out their guns and aimed at Wu Chen's back. Asterisk. Chapter 11. I can be your 4th fake boyfriend, think about it. The sudden change made everyone a little confused. The bodyguards outside were very nervous. If something happened to Li Ruobing, they would all have to be thrown into the river to feed the fish. But it seemed that Wu Chen was not targeting Li Ruobing, but threatening assistant Feng Yan with a gun, so they didn't shoot immediately. After Li Ruobing was suddenly frightened, she raised her hand to signal the door. Me, not me, boss, I was wronged, boss. Feng Yan didn't know Wu Chen's identity and thought it was Li Ruobing's intention, so he begged Li Ruobing for mercy. Even when Li Ruobing called for someone to come, he thought it was aimed at him. His head was pressed on the table, and he couldn't see who they were pointing the gun to. You were wronged. How dare you say that you were wronged when you were about to die? Wu Chen looked very angry. How do you explain the $5 million in your Swiss bank? What? What 5 million? What? What are you talking about? I don't know, it's not mine. Feng Yan still wanted to quibble. Boom! Wu Chen hit him on the back of the head again, then touched his body with the other hand, and took out his mobile phone. Holding Feng Yan's hand, he unlocked the phone. Look, there's nothing in my phone, Feng Yan shouted. Wu Chen didn't look at anything, he directly entered a series of numbers and dialed his number 2 card. Ding Ruolong's private number will not be saved on the mobile phone. Feng Yan already memorized the number, and the record would be deleted after each call. As for his number 2 card, the call record could not be found in the mobile company. But unfortunately, Wu Chen happened to also know Ding Ruolong's private number. After dialing, Wu Chen turned on the phone and put the phone on the table. After a few beeps, the phone was connected. Have you gotten the information? An eager voice came from the phone. Wu Chen raised his hand and pressed it and hung up immediately. He also took away the pistol, put it on the table, and slid towards Li Ruobing. The pistol slid to the edge of the table and just stopped. Wu Chen tidied up his sleeves and neckline, then walked back to the sofa and sat down, raised his legs, and calmed down. Li Ruobing was expressionless and looked at Feng Yan with a cold expression. She stepped forward to pick up the pistol, fiddled with it in her hand, seemed to check if there was any problem, and at the same time said quietly without raising her head, "You are also an old man of the Li family. You have been with my father for 10 years, and then with me. 4 years. You have made a lot of money overtly and secretly in these years. I know that, but since you are loyal, I overlooked them. $5 million is all it's worth for you to betray me, is that it?" Li Ruobing finished speaking and looked up at Feng Yan. The bodyguards outside seemed to understand the situation. They all put away their guns and closed the door. One even ran to the stairs and temporarily sealed off the entire floor. Thump! Feng Yan knelt down, trembling and crying bitterly. "Miss, I was forced. So, it is true that you have been betraying me." I said, how could it be so coincidental? Ding Ruolong met by chance, and during the last advertisement endorsement, he suddenly changed his mind. Li Ruobing had a murderous look in her eyes. "Miss, I didn't do it for money. You accepted Ding Ruolong's money." "Accepted, yes. But, it's Madam's intention. It's Madam." Feng Yan knelt down, afraid. His head was sweating profusely, and his back was full of blood. Li Ruobing's expression changed. "Madam," referring to her mother. The Li family wanted Li Ruobing to marry Ding Ruolong, but when they made the bet, there was an agreement that if Li Ruobing found out that the Li family deliberately helped Ding Ruolong, then Ding Ruolong would lose. So, if Madam ordered it, then Ding Ruolong would lose directly. But, if Li Ruobing asked, the family will not admit it. It was absolutely impossible to admit it. This was very inexplicable. "Miss, I'm also very embarrassed. I can't help it. I didn't intend to harm you, and I didn't mean to harm you. I am loyal to the Li family," Feng Yan begged. The murderous look in Li Ruobing's eyes receded, and her eyes gradually became complicated. If her mother really asked Feng Yan to do this, then Feng Yan was really forced to do so. "He's lying," Wu Chen, who was sitting on the sofa, suddenly said. He was looking at his nails, but he didn't look over there. He continued, "It's Ding Ruolong. Your mother actually doesn't want you to marry Ding Ruolong. She doesn't want you to become a victim of a big family marriage, though she also received pressure from her natal family. Your grandfather pressured her. It was Ding Ruolong's idea to shift the responsibility to your mother. Transferring a company to him is not only $5 million, but also, if it is found out, Ding Ruolong will give him a company. Ding Ruolong knows that you don't give anyone a face at home, you even dare to scold the old man. However, you can't let go of your mother who has always favored you. Actually, Feng Yan didn't dare to be a traitor. He knew your temper. It was Ding Ruolong who said that if it was discovered, it could be said that it was your mother who made him do it. Your mother would definitely not admit it. But this will make you feel that your mother didn't admit it because of the betting agreement, and you will mistakenly think that Feng Yan was really a pawn of your mother. You fart. You spitting lies. Who are you? You bastard, where did you come from? Feng Yan completely lost his composure and cursed at Wu Chen. Because everything Wu Chen said was true. The reason why he was able to know such a secret was that he often tortured others to extract confessions and learn some secrets during his millennium reincarnation. After all, he resets every day without the consequences. Wu Chen once kidnapped Feng Yan in the early morning of July 7th, cut off his fingers piece by piece, and obtained a lot of inside information through torture. Wu Chen also flew for several hours, arrived in Nangguang at noon, and went directly to kidnap Ding Ruolong. Ding Ruolong was tortured to extract a confession, and he finally killed him. Therefore, there was no secret that Wu Chen did not know. If I'm telling lies, why are you so agitated? Wu Chen looked at Feng Yan and said calmly, and, do you think, if Boss Li calls Ding Ruolong to question this matter and repeat what I just said, do you think Ding Ruolong will protect you? To protect you, he has to give you a company. If he doesn't protect you, what does it have to do with him if you die? Don't you think so? Wu Chen's words made Feng Yan fall into a trap. In extreme fear. As a human being, it's right to be greedy. However, you can't blame others for being stupid. Wu Chen finally said. Feng Yan's inner line of defense exploded directly. Boom, boom, boom. Miss, I know I was wrong. Miss. Feng Yan began to kowtow, bleeding from the knock. Li Ruobing sat down slowly, put the gun on the table, and said, tell me, what have you been doing for Ding Ruolong these years? Feng Yan explained everything tremblingly. It was nothing more than monitoring Li Ruobing's schedule, stealing company information, and hindering the company's development. After listening to everything Feng Yan said, Li Ruobing was already very calm. Go, I don't want to see you again. Li Ruobing said. Thank you, miss. Thank you, miss. Feng Yan kowtowed excitedly, got up and ran outside, staggered open the door, and went out. After he went out, Li Ruobing picked up his mobile phone, made a call, and said, Feng Yan, clean up. After hanging up and throwing the mobile phone on the table, Li Ruobing took off her gold-rimmed glasses and rubbed them, looking a little tired. In fact, she was very tired. 10 million, when will it be credited to my account? Wu Chen's voice came. Li Ruobing looked up at Wu Chen. At this moment, she looked at Wu Chen very delicately. In fact, she was not short-sighted. The gold-rimmed glasses were flat mirrors, and she could see clearly even if she took them off. Did I promise to give it to you? Li Ruobing asked quietly. Wu Chen spread his hands, looking casual. Hey, Li Ruobing sneered. She picked up the phone and flicked it back and forth for a while. Ring. Wu Chen's cell phone rang. He picked up his mobile phone and saw the bank text message, 20 million in the account. Li Ruobing had investigated Wu Chen before, so there was no need to ask for Wu Chen's bank card number. Wu Chen's information was on the table. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. You gave too much. Wu Chen put away his phone and looked up. What about my brother? Li Ruobing asked directly. Wu Chen smiled and didn't say anything. You lied to me, Li Ruobing said lightly. I know what you are thinking now. You believe that I have some information, but you still doubt me. You think I am trying to gain your trust and suspecting that I was sent by Ding Ruolong, deliberately abandoning Feng Yan and acting right. Wu Chen smiled. So, I guess after I tell you about your brother, you will shoot me, right? Li Ruobing looked at Wu Chen and remained silent. So, in order to dispel your doubts, I don't mind being your fourth fake boyfriend. You know that's what Ding Ruolong cares about the most. He doesn't want to be a cuckold, even if it's fake. How about it? Wu Chen insisted, smiling. Why? Aren't you afraid of death? Li Ruobing asked after a moment of silence. People go to high places and get in touch with you. My life will be very interesting, won't it? Wu Chen smiled brightly. Li Ruobing looked at Wu Chen, and the corners of her mouth gradually turned up. She smiled. I'm beginning to like you a little bit, Li Ruobing said with a smile. What she said was true, because she liked greedy people, and the most terrifying thing was people who had no desires. After all, greedy people show that they have weaknesses and can be controlled. Asterisk. Chapter 12. Your brother is going to have a major incident. Li Ruobing picked up the pistol, walked out from behind the desk, and walked towards Wu Chen. Based on Wu Chen's understanding of Li Ruobing, the possibility of her shooting him at this moment should be 50%. In other words, he might be shot dead by Li Ruobing, or he might not. But Wu Chen still had a smile on his face. He wasn't even going to reset the time the moment Li Ruobing shot. Because there was no need, Li Ruobing couldn't hit him. The closer the distance was, the more impossible it was. If Li Ruobing gets within 3 meters, then Wu Chen could subdue her in an instant. It was impossible for anyone to sneak attack within 3 meters of Wu Chen. The abilities that Wu Chen cultivated in the Millennium Reincarnation were not practiced in vain. I have to admit, you are very special. Li Ruobing was laughing ever since she showed a smile. You are very courageous, and you are so young. If you leave this world like this, it will be unfortunate. It was hard to tell if she was threatening him. She already walked within 3 meters of Wu Chen. 2 meters. 1 meter. Half a meter. Li Ruobing instantly raised the gun, and pointed it at Wu Chen's forehead. Wu Chen kept smiling and looked at Li Ruobing calmly. He was good at observing people, so he can instantly judge whether a person really wants to shoot when they raise the gun. The moment Li Ruobing raised the gun, Wu Chen knew that she would not kill him. As far as Li Ruobing's personality was concerned, if she wanted to kill someone with her own hands, she would not use any tricks. She would not only shoot, but also empty the magazine in one go. Conversely, if she raised the gun and did not shoot, she would never do. Aren't you afraid? Li Ruobing tilted her head and asked playfully. If you really want to kill me, you will call others to do so, because you already feel that I am dangerous, but you don't. It's just a joke. Why should I be afraid? Wu Chen said lightly. Li Ruobing narrowed her eyes and then smiled again. Her smile was as bright and eye-catching as the sunshine in the early morning of April. I really like you. Li Ruobing smiled. She put the pistol on the coffee table, and then took out the rubber band from her pocket. Holding the rubber band in her mouth, with her hands back, she gathered her hair and tied it up. Then she took the rubber band in one hand and tied her hair into a ponytail. She liked this hairstyle. It always hangs straight, without any mess. In fact, this was a disguised behavior, just like she was not short-sighted and wore gold-rimmed glasses. She had been solidifying her cold and strong image to the outside world. And when she tied her hair up, it meant she was probably at home, or relaxed. After tying up her hair, Li Ruobing turned around and sat directly in Wu Chen's arms, hooked Wu Chen's neck with her left hand, raised her head slightly, and put her mouth close to Wu Chen's earlobe, looking like an intimate couple. She took out her phone with her right hand and opened it to take a selfie. Crack! The lights flashed and the selfie was done. Li Ruobing checked the selfie, but her face changed slightly when she saw the photo and found that Wu Chen raised 2 fingers at the moment she took the picture. Made a peace gesture. Wu Chen in the photo was so calm, with a smile on his face. Wu Chen understood what it meant to take a photo together. It was, of course, related to Ding Ruolong. Li Ruobing would find an opportunity to send the photo to Ding Ruolong. On the one hand, she would be anger and disgust Ding Ruolong. On the other hand, she could ensure that Wu Chen was not sent by Ding Ruolong. Okay, from today onwards, you are my boyfriend. I will get someone to apply for you in a while, and you will be my assistant, but you don't need to do anything. Just accompany me to attend business banquets occasionally, and the salary will be paid. Li Ruobing said while standing up. She took off the rubber band, let her hair loose, and tossed it. Picking up the gun again, she returned to her desk and sat down. "Tell me, what's wrong with my brother?" Li Ruobing asked in a cold tone. It was as if the two of them had become strangers all of a sudden. With Li Ruobing's personality, her inner defense was very strong. This was the first time Wu Chen had become Li Ruobing's boyfriend. Although he had slept with Li Ruobing many times before on July 7th, it was all without emotion. Before, Wu Chen would not have any affection for women. He would attack any woman for the purpose of sleeping with them. Wanting to fall in love with Li Ruobing was more difficult than sleeping with her. Because for Li Ruobing, what happened to her with a man was not a man playing with her, but her playing with a man. Moreover, Li Ruobing had always wanted to get rid of her perfect body, and she was not sure that she would win the bet, so she had long thought that if she really wanted to marry Ding Ruolong, then she would definitely play a game before marrying Ding Ruolong. She would discuss Ding Ruolong as much as she could. She's just been waiting for an opportunity to indulge completely. Wu Chen created opportunities for her before and let her choose herself. Donghai Crown, Zongyuan Dafuhao, Nangguang Red Sea, the three top entertainment clubs in China, among which Donghai Crown is run by your brother. Wu Chen said. Well, what's the matter? Li Ruobing asked. The Crown crossed the line, involving many high-level celebrities, rich people, and officials. The investigation started 3 months ago. According to the information I have now, I estimate that it will be closed within a month at most. Wu Chen said. Li Ruobing's face changed again and again, and she was a little dazed. This was very, very big. That's right, this isn't just about your brother, it's aimed at your Li family. Once the net is closed, it will not only be as simple as your brother being imprisoned. Wu Chen continued, if necessary, you and your Li family will even need to go to jail. Your brother should break the relationship and get rid of it completely. Li Ruobing stood up, stroked her hair, and took 2 quick steps back and forth. Very restless. Although she was not involved in this matter, she could be said to be the cleanest person in the Li family. However, she and her brother had a very good relationship. Is there no problem with the information? Li Ruobing stopped and asked Wu Chen urgently. Are you questioning my intelligence capabilities? Wu Chen asked with a smile. Li Ruobing looked at Wu Chen and calmed down. She picked up the phone and quickly dialed a number. At the same time, in the private room on the top floor of Donghai Crown Entertainment Club. It's really not yours. Hey, that's weird. He dared to use your name, and he even knew my phone number. This person is so daring, he's looking for death. I'm so mad. The middle-aged man with a long goatee and a cane in his hand was speaking respectfully to a handsome young man in a white shirt. Behind him stood a bearded man with bandages on his hands. This middle-aged man with a cane in his hand was the well-known Zhao Guaizi in Donghai City. People in the rivers and lakes called him the kidnapper. The handsome young man opposite him was the legendary Mr. Li. Behind Zhao Guaizi was Lu Huzi, who cut off his fingers yesterday. Last night, Zhao Guaizi didn't fall asleep all night. He was naturally frightened. He came to look for Mr. Li early this morning, and he came to make amends. He really thought he had offended Mr. Li. But he never expected that Mr. Li didn't know anything and said that no one had arranged to contact Zhao Guaizi. There were no young people in his early 20s around him. Dare to use my name. Guaizi, what did he say yesterday? Mr. Li asked Zhao Guaizi with a glance. Zhao Guaizi was about to say. Ring. The phone rang. Mr. Li raised his hand as a gesture, took out the phone and glanced at it and immediately connected. He looked serious and cold and smiled and said, Sister. Where are you? In the store. Come here. Forget it, I'll go find you. Wait for me. Sister, you are in a hurry. Don't talk nonsense. Beep beep. Mr. Li smiled helplessly when he heard the busy tone on the phone, and the woman putting the phone down. My sister will come over. Mr. Li looked at Zhao Guaizi. Then you were busy. I'll be going first, Zhao Guaizi said as he wanted to stand up. No, sit down, wait for my sister before you leave. Mr. Li motioned. Let's talk about that kid's situation. What the hell? He dares to use my name. I will chop him up with my own hands. Chapter 13. I want to crush him to death with my own hands. In the office, Li Ruobing hung up, went to the side to get her coat, and said, "Come with me to meet my brother." "Okay." Wu Chen stood up. "That's right." Li Ruobing had just put her coat on her arms, then suddenly turned around. Wu Chen was walking out, but she came over to block Wu Chen. Then, she raised her hand to straighten Wu Chen's collar. "We're meeting my brother. Remember, no matter how he asks you, you can't say you are fake. Even if he threatens you. You are my boyfriend, understand?" Li Ruobing said seriously. "Understood," Wu Chen said with a smile. Li Ruobing did not want to repeat the same mistakes. Li Ruobing had 3 fake boyfriends before. The first one, suicide. In the second one, he was framed and imprisoned, and his family was ruined. The third one, after an accident at home, he couldn't bear the pressure and disappeared. The problem was that everyone knows that Li Ruobing's boyfriend was fake. Ding Ruolong knew it was fake, the Li family knew it was fake, even Li Ruobing's younger brother knew it was fake. Therefore, no one cared about the life and death of the fake boyfriend. Li Ruobing was alone, and it was difficult to keep him. But when it came to protecting people, Mr. Li was really capable. His strength was not weaker than Ding Ruolong's. Mr. Li's real name is Li Ruotai. He was 26 years old, the eldest grandson of Li family, and he was the most favored at home. He could use most of the power of the Li family. As far as the status in the Li family was concerned, Li Ruotai was in the sky, while Li Ruobing was underground. However, the siblings were only 1 year apart, and they grew up together. They were in the same school for elementary school, junior high school, and high school. The relationship between the two was really good. Li Ruobing had been tough since she was a child. She spared no effort to protect her younger brother. She always stood in front of her younger brother when fighting in groups at school. She also spared no effort fighting said groups. This caused Li Ruotai to respect and fear her now. In fact, to put it bluntly, sister and brother loved each other deeply. Li Ruotai objected to the fact that the old man wanted to marry Li Ruobing to Ding Ruolong. But he was a junior, it was useless to object, and he didn't have the courage of his sister to dare to scold the old man or slap each other's ears with his uncle. Since everyone knew it was a fake boyfriend, he used the boyfriend as a shield to deal with the matter. So Li Ruotai didn't treat her sister's fake boyfriend as a human being, but just as a tool. If he didn't care, Li Ruobing lacked a lot of help. So this time, Li Ruobing hoped that her 4th fake boyfriend would be more real. Compared with her previous 3 fake boyfriends, Wu Chen was really special. The most special thing was that Wu Chen knew everything inside. The 3 before Li Ruobing didn't know the inside story. They didn't know about the better Ding Ruolong's methods. They all thought that they were lucky enough to be attracted by Li Ruobing. Although they were reprimanded by Li Ruobing in private like the 3rd grandson, they couldn't even touch Li Ruobing's hands, but they still enjoyed it, dreaming that they would be loved by Li Ruobing in the future. It's all a dream. Li Ruobing decided that this time it must be different. She wanted to make it impossible for everyone to see, and to make everyone think that she really had a boyfriend. As long as the younger brother felt that she found true love, the younger brother would do his best to help her. Instead of being in a dilemma between the family and her. "You clothes are too ordinary." Li Ruobing looked up and down. "I'll buy a new one, you pay the bill," Wu Chen said. "Okay." Li Ruobing smiled. She grabbed Wu Chen's arms and walked out. The door opened. The bodyguard followed behind the two. They went downstairs. There was a lot of chaos in the company. The staff on several floors of the Symphony Fashion had seen that their beautiful boss came downstairs holding a man's hand. Although they knew that the boss had a boyfriend before, the boss seemed to be indifferent and did not make any intimacy at all. What's the situation this time? Li Ruobing, Wu Chen, and 8 bodyguards, a total of 10 people went downstairs together and took the elevator to the underground parking lot. 3 cars drove over directly. There were Escalade SUVs at the front and rear, and a Maybach in the middle. They boarded, then set off. Crown Entertainment Clubhouse. And asked you to cut off your fingers. Mr. Li's face was already a little grim. Yes, Mr. Li. He knows the rules very well, and it feels like this is not the first time he has used your name to deceive you. Lu Huzi said politely. Because Lu Huzi was the person involved, Zhao Guaizi asked Lu Huzi to tell the specific situation, and Lu Huzi honestly told the whole situation without hiding anything. The blue veins on Mr. Li's forehead popped up, and he was extremely angry. What he was angry about was not Lu Huzi cutting his fingers, since Lu Huzi was not his, but his little brother's little brother. What really made him angry was that the person who borrowed his name did too much. If this got out, his face would be useless. We all know that people on Donghai City were afraid of Mr. Li, and now someone used his name to make trouble. It could be said to be a big joke. In Wang Zhuangyuan's bar, Mr. Li asked sullenly. Yes. Lu Huzi nodded. Mr. Li picked up his mobile phone and dialed Wang Zhuangyuan's number. Zhuangyuan, come to my store. Just over 10 minutes later, Wang Zhuangyuan arrived with his people. After going through the bodyguard inspection and entering the door, he nodded to Mr. Li first, and when he saw that Zhao Guaizi was there, he immediately turned dark and said, "The kidnapper is also here. Your people stole my car. Didn't you? And you think of meeting me here? Why would my people steal your car?" Zhao Guaizi's face changed drastically, and he stood up with a cane and said excitedly, "What a fart. Who stole your car?" He dare not take this shit, because he didn't want to bear the responsibility of breaking the peace in front of Mr. Li. Wang Zhuangyuan said it directly because Mr. Li was present. "At my bar yesterday, wasn't that man and woman your friends?" Wang Zhuangyuan adjusted his glasses and said sadly. "Those two people from yesterday." Zhao Guaizi was taken aback for a moment, then he knew it was a misunderstanding. "No, one scholar, sit down. I may have misunderstood you. The reason I called you here is to ask you, do you know those two people yesterday? Are they regular customers of your store?" Mr. Li asked. Misunderstanding. Wang Zhuangyuan was also stunned. Seeing that Mr. Li also knew those two people, he only muttered in his heart. After sitting down, he explained the situation yesterday. In the middle of the night, he led people back to the bar and found that Lu Huzi led people waiting for him, and cut off his finger, covering the wound. He thought there was going to be a fight, but Lu Huzi admitted his mistake first, politely called him Brother Zhuangyuan, and promised to compensate for all losses. Because of Lu Huzi's attitude, Wang Zhuangyuan didn't want to start a war, so he let him go after a few curses. He then asked the bar staff for details. The bar staff said that it was two young people, a man and a woman, who somehow clashed with Lu Huzi's men, and the young man was very ruthless. There was going to be a bigger conflict, but the young man made a phone call and asked Lu Huzi to answer the phone. At that time, Lu Huzi was surrounded by people, and the bar staff didn't dare to get too close, so he didn't know what was said in detail. He only knew that the young man called Zhao Guaizi, and Lu Huzi called Big Brother when he answered the phone. Afterwards, Lu Huzi was discouraged, knelt down to admit his mistake to the man and woman, and even cut off his fingers. After Wang Zhuangyuan learned about the situation, he thought that the man and the woman were relatives of Zhao Guaizi, or the rich second generation who had a special relationship with Zhao Guaizi, and even maliciously speculated whether they were Zhao Guaizi's illegitimate children. But it had nothing to do with him, and he didn't bother to investigate. And just when he was leading the people to leave, he found the car was lost. His white Lamborghini. Later, the surveillance at the gate of the bar was called and it was discovered that the man and woman who had clashed with Lu Huzi were the ones who drove away the white Lamborghini. Wang Zhuangyuan wanted to call Zhao Guaizi to question him. But he also wanted to arrest people first, so that he could take advantage of Zhao Guaizi. This morning, his men found the car, but lost it again. He sent people to search the whole city. Wang Zhuangyuan talked about the general situation. Of course, he didn't say what was in his heart, but he knew what his intentions were, but this was not the point now. It was very dull in the room. Mr. Li lit a cigarette, took a breath, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Guaizi, what's going on?" Wang Zhuangyuan felt that something was wrong and asked Zhao Guaizi in a low voice. That person used Mr. Li's name and said, Zhao Guaizi said briefly. Wang Zhuangyuan completely understood. This man was so audacious to such an extent. The person who hurt Zhao Guaizi stole Wang Zhuangyuan's car and used Mr. Li's name. Offending two bosses and one big boss at once, and making fun of the people on the East China Sea gang, he wouldn't do that even if he wanted to die. You must find him. He must be captured alive. Bring him to me, and I will personally squeeze him to death. Mr. Li gritted his teeth. Don't worry, he will definitely be found. Zhao Guaizi and Wang Zhuangyuan said in unison. At this moment, there was a sound of chaotic footsteps outside the door. The bodyguards outside the door called in unison, Miss. My sister is here, you go first. Mr. Li said as he stood up and put out his cigarette because he knew that the old lady didn't like smoke. Chapter 14. Sister, brother-in-law. Zhao Guaizi, Wang Zhuangyuan and others all stood up. The door of the room was opened by the bodyguards outside. Li Ruobing signaled the bodyguards not to follow in and only led Wu Chen into the room. When Zhao Guaizi and Wang Zhuangyuan saw Li Ruobing, they all bowed and said, Miss Li. In fact, they hadn't seen Li Ruobing several times. Their understanding of Li Ruobing was extremely limited. But they knew that Li Ruobing was the first member of the third generation of the Li family. He was more capable than some old foxes. It was just because she was a daughter and her personality was too strong, so she didn't have a good relationship with her family. Whether Li Ruobing had a good relationship with his family had nothing to do with ruffians at the level of Zhao Guaizi and Wang Zhuangyuan. They all knew that Mr. Li was very afraid of his sister, so they were even more afraid of Li Ruobing. Offending Li Ruobing was more terrifying than offending Mr. Li. Sister, what's the matter? Why are you here in person? Li Ruotai smiled and said, he seemed a little nervous, and he fanned the air with his hand because of the smell of smoke. While Li Ruotai was speaking, Zhao Guaizi and others were walking out. Suddenly, Lu Huzi howled. It's him! Lu Huzi shouted excitedly, pointing at the young man in a blue suit beside Li Ruobing. He looked left and right, his face trembling with excitement. Brother! Mr. Li, it was him last night. Lu Huzi, I hated the person so much. He was really scared yesterday. He knew that he had offended someone he couldn't offend. Although he cut his finger, he didn't feel any hatred in his heart, and he was even a little grateful. The big man didn't care about him. But when he knew that he had been cheated, the anger in his heart was 1,000 times greater. Many people were like this. Being slapped in the face by a big man in public, he dared not hate the other party and even learn a lesson. But if they were tricked by a kid who was nothing, compared with the hatred brought about by the pain of severed fingers, the hatred brought about by humiliation was stronger. Seeing how angry Mr. Li was just now, he had already made a plan in his heart. Once he caught the boy yesterday, he would cut off his hand first and then hand it over to Mr. Li. Mr. Li said he should be alive. Yes, but he didn't say he had to be complete. But he didn't expect, just as he made his plans, Wu Chen appeared in front of his eyes. When he just opened the door, he didn't even recognize it was Wu Chen, because Wu Chen had changed clothes. Before coming here, Li Ruobing took him to buy an extremely expensive suit, as well as accessories such as watches and cufflinks. Wu Chen looked completely different from yesterday. Lu Huzi was so excited, he yelled as soon as he recognized Wu Chen, which made everyone in the room stunned. Wang Zhuangyuan frowned and looked at Wu Chen carefully. He passed Wu Chen yesterday, but he didn't pay attention to it, but later on in the bar surveillance, he took a rough look at Wu Chen's appearance, and he was indeed the kid from yesterday. However, neither he nor Zhao Guaizi dared to move, because this was Mr. Li's place, and they couldn't mess around. Moreover, this kid came with Mrs. Li's sister. That's him. Li Ruotai glanced at Lu Huzi, then sized Wu Chen. That's right, that's him. Lu Huzi shouted, but he noticed that his elder brother Zhao Guaizi was winking, so his voice gradually dropped. Yo, they're all here. Wu Chen said suddenly, showing a calm and natural smile, and everyone looked at him. Zhao Guaizi had never seen him, but Wu Chen had seen Zhao Guaizi countless times in the previous reincarnation. A house full of acquaintances. Oh, by the way, I borrowed your car for fun yesterday, and I'm returning the key to you. The car is in the underground parking lot of Block 7 of the CBD, Wu Chen said as he took out the keys of the Lamborghini, and threw them at Wang Zhuangyuan. Wang Zhuangyuan caught the key but didn't know what to say for a while. Wu Chen was so familiar with this occasion, Wang Zhuangyuan couldn't figure out his identity. Sister, this kid is, Li Ruotai finally asked. What kid? Li Ruobing frowned. This is your brother-in-law. Sister, brother-in-law. Li Ruotai seemed to have choked on something, and almost choked to death. He subconsciously thought that his sister was playing fake boyfriend again, but Li Ruobing never let him call her fake boyfriend brother-in-law before. Call him as such. Li Ruobing gave Li Ruotai a sideways look. Sister, hello brother-in-law. Li Ruotai immediately greeted him, very politely. Of course, he was not afraid of Wu Chen, but of his elder sister. He was worried that if he did not greet him, his sister would beat him, and it was embarrassing if many people saw this. Hiss. Wang Zhuangyuan, Zhao Guaizi, and Lu Huzi all gasped. This young man in his early 20s is Mr. Li's brother-in-law. Is he Li Ruobing's man? It's over, it's over, it's over. I thought I was tricked by a liar, but in the end I went back again. What a big shot. And it's the kind that young Master Li himself dares not mess with. Although they didn't know why Mr. Li didn't know his brother-in-law, they couldn't guess that Li Ruobing hadn't been with this man for long. But from the fact that Li Ruobing asked Li Gongzi to him her brother-in-law in public, it could be felt that the two were probably very close. Then Mr. Li was his family. And they were all outsiders. Zhao Guaizi kept squinting at Lu Huzi. Lu Huzi had already started to break out in a cold sweat, and he felt that he was really going to be cold. The atmosphere in the room became very strange. Go back first. Li Ruotai broke the atmosphere. Yes, yes, yes. Zhao Guaizi and the others quickly agreed, but they didn't dare to look at Li Ruobing and Wu Chen, and they all went out again. Li Ruobing and Wu Chen walked in together. Li Ruobing still held hands with Wu Chen very naturally. Suddenly, Li Ruobing covered her mouth as if feeling very uncomfortable, retched twice, and then seemed to be unable to bear it anymore, pushed Wu Chen away and went straight to the attached bathroom in the room. She went in and slammed the door, retching in the bathroom. Zhao Guaizi, who had just walked to the door, was stunned. At their age, they are naturally people who have experienced it, and they all understand why women retch because of it. Li Ruotai also understood. Let alone them, Wu Chen was a little confused. This was not what was said in advance. It was Li Ruobing's sudden decision, although Wu Chen knew what it meant, but this, wasn't it too much drama? Just taking advantage of the fact that Li Ruotai's important people were all there, you deliberately act out. Want to confuse everyone. Wu Chen didn't have time to think about it, so he hurried over and wanted to go into the bathroom, but found that it was locked. He knocked on the door and said to the inside, Ruobing, are you okay? Li Ruotai by the sofa, and Wu Chen by the bathroom door. Wu Chen gave Li Ruobing a hand and asked with concern, are you okay? I'm okay. Li Ruobing smiled. Li Ruotai was stunned again. His sister smiled. His elder sister actually smiled at a man. You really want to convince everyone, huh? Wu Chen tilted his head and toward Li Ruobing again. Are you afraid? Are you afraid that Ding Ruolong will know and kill you? Li Ruobing replied in a very low voice. You think I'll be afraid? Wu Chen replied. Li Ruotai couldn't hear what the two of them were talking about, so in his eyes, this scene was that his elder sister was whispering very intimately with his brother-in-law, and both of them were smiling. There was also some smoke smell in the house. Li Ruotai suddenly walked quickly to the window and pushed it open for ventilation. Back at the coffee table, he picked up the ashtray again and threw the ashtray directly into the trash can. Don't be too busy, just sit down. Li Ruobing pulled Wu Chen to sit down and said. Sister, you can't be. Li Ruotai raised his hand to gesture but didn't dare to gesture, because he wanted to point to Li Ruobing's stomach. It's just a little uncomfortable. Li Ruobing deliberately said vaguely, with the intention of denying it, but the more she denied it, the more Li Ruotai misunderstood her. Is the old lady really pregnant? And is it this man's child? Chapter 15. This little boy must have lied to my elder sister. Li Ruotai's eyes when he looked at Wu Chen became very scrutinizing and gradually became a little unfriendly. Because he really didn't see anything special about Wu Chen. He looked okay, but not earth-shatteringly handsome. He was of average height, neither tall nor short, and looked too young. Being young was an advantage in many people's eyes, but not in some people's eyes. Because being young meant a lack of ability and experience, as the saying goes, if you don't experience it, you can't do things well. In the eyes of successful people and big shots, it is difficult to link youth with ability. Li Ruotai knew his elder sister well. Li Ruotai would not be surprised even if the old lady was looking for a middle-aged man in her 40s or 50s, because he knew what kind of temper the old lady had. She was strong and domineering and never showed mercy. In her eyes, weak and incompetent people were trash. She admired a man with ability, a super second generation who had a great background but was dawdling. She will not look straight at him, even if the other party had a bigger background than her. And if it was a successful self-made businessman, even if he was not so rich, even if the means of making a fortune were a little dirty, the old lady would be very polite to such a person. So, Li Ruotai couldn't figure it out. How could the old lady fall in love with a young man in his early 20s? Because it didn't make sense logically, he had now begun to think that his mighty and domineering older sister may have been deceived by the little boy. He knew that although the elder sister was mature in thinking, capable of handling things, and very assertive, she had never really been in a relationship. Love could make people blind and make people's IQ zero. That's right. It must be so. The more Li Ruotai thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. In his heart, he planned to save his elder sister and expose the true face of this little boy. "Tai, what are you looking at?" Li Ruobing frowned and stretched out his hand. Li Ruotai had been staring at Wu Chen for quite a while. If it was someone else, it would have started to feel unnatural, but Wu Chen didn't seem to feel so. He just kept smiling. "Ah, it's nothing, just looking at brother-in-law." Li Ruotai smirked, and asked naturally, "Brother-in-law doesn't look very old." "How old are you?" 22 years old. Wu Chen smiled. "You're only 22 years old, just graduated from university." Li Ruotai asked. "I just graduated this year." "Just graduated? When did you meet my sister?" "It's been 3 months. I met her when your sister brought someone to the university to recruit interns." Wu Chen answered fluently. Li Ruobing glanced at Wu Chen. She did go to Tunghai University 3 months ago, but she never told Wu Chen about it. "You've only known each other for 3 months." Li Ruotai smiled gracefully, and glanced to understand. "Why are you already talking about marriage? Didn't you say you won't get married in this life, sister?" "I'm not here to talk about that. Just chatting." Li Ruobing glared at Li Ruotai. "Let's talk." Li Ruotai was very desperate today. He insisted on saving Li Ruobing. He resolved that even if he was beaten today, he must expose this little face. "By the way, brother-in-law, they seem to have misunderstood you yesterday. I apologize to you on their behalf." Li Ruotai said sincerely. "It's okay, it's all from family." Wu Chen said. "Brother-in-law is really generous, huh? Kidnapper said that you were with a little girl at the Huahei bar yesterday, so who is it?" "Your sister," Li Ruotai said. "Little girl." Li Ruobing squinted at Wu Chen, and her reaction was super fast. In fact, she didn't know anything about what happened yesterday, and she didn't care at all, and she didn't care what relationship Wu Chen had with other women. The relationship between the two of them was fake. But, in front of her younger brother, she had to pretend that she cared and be more sensitive. "She's not my sister. She's Mu Qianchen," Wu Chen continued, "the daughter of the owner of Donghai Mu's biopharmaceutical group, Mu Sihai's daughter. You really have to thank me. If I didn't stop her yesterday and Lu Huzi really touched her, you may not be able to settle this matter." Li Ruotai's face changed slightly. Donghai Mu's group, a local enterprise in Donghai City, was a leader in the biomedical industry in Donghai. The owner, Mu Sihai, was worth more than 1 billion yuan. Mu's group was naturally incomparable with the Li family, they were not at the same level of family. But as the saying goes, a strong dragon couldn't overwhelm a local snake. Mu's group was a local snake in the East China Sea. And Li Ruotai's coming to the East China Sea belonged to the saying dragon crossing the river. The water in the biomedical industry was very deep, and people with insufficient connections could not enter this industry at all. What Wu Chen said was right. If something happened to Mu Qianqin yesterday, even if it was Mr. Li, it would not be easy for him to settle it. Mu Sihai did not just have a daughter, she was also spoiled. Although Li Ruotai was not afraid of him, in the East China Sea, if he really fought with Mu Sihai, even if he could win, he would have to pay a heavy price. Then, thank you brother-in-law. Li Ruotai's face was very strange. Don't talk about this useless thing. I looked for you today because I have something urgent to talk about. Li Ruobing said. Sister, tell me, Li Ruotai said immediately. The matter of Mu Qianqin was over, and Li Ruotai didn't pursue it, because from Wu Chen's words just now, he seemed to know Mu Sihai. Wu Chen deliberately made him misunderstand. He knew Mu Sihai, but Mu Sihai didn't know him, but if he wanted to make friends with Mu Sihai, it's just a matter of minutes. Let your brother-in-law talk about it. Li Ruobing said again, motioning to Wu Chen. Li Ruotai frowned slightly. This little boy tricked the old lady so much. In the past, Li Ruobing's fake boyfriends were all submissive in front of Li Ruobing, and they didn't dare to breathe, but Li Ruotai saw them all. But this time, Wu Chen didn't care what Li Ruotai was thinking right now and briefly explained the situation to Li Ruotai. The Crown Club is going to be moved from above. Impossible, how do you know? Li Ruotai asked Wu Chen with squinted eyes in disbelief. He also knew that the Crown Clubhouse was very popular, but he always managed everything very well, and he knew that he was the grandson of Li's parents, so who would dare mess around? His old man was not dead yet. You shouldn't have secretly filmed those videos, blackmailed those people, and your business with Xiehu should have been terminated long ago. Wu Chen said. You, Li Ruotai suddenly became very uneasy and even glanced at the elder sister. Xiehu was a son of the Xie family in the north. His business with Xiehu was not even known to his elder sister, so how could Wu Chen know about it? Are you in contact with someone surnamed Xie? Li Ruobing reacted greatly after hearing this, stood up suddenly, pointed at her younger brother, and said, how many times have I told you? He is not a good guy. You ignore my words. Sister, calm down, you, be careful, sit down. Li Ruotai shrank back, afraid that the old sister would suddenly slap him. Your sister is right, Xie is indeed not a good family. Wu Chen continued, this time, he sold you. He was the one who did it first, but he put all the responsibility on you. He said it was your idea. Li Ruotai's expression turned pale, and he slowly clenched his fists. Although he still half believed Wu Chen's words, Xiehu had been very abnormal these past few months, and he hadn't brought any new guests over for a long time. How do you know this? How can I trust you? Who told you this? Li Ruotai suddenly stared at Wu Chen and asked. He began to doubt Wu Chen's identity. Something is wrong. There are some things that I don't need to tell you. I came here because of Ruobing. Wu Chen glanced at Li Ruobing, and then said to Li Ruotai, you are Ruobing's younger brother. If something happened to you, she will be sad. That's why I came here. You kid, don't play tricks. Let me tell you, if you don't speak clearly today, you won't get out of here alive. Li Ruotai patted the table and stood up. Wu Chen smiled. As expected of brothers and sisters, what Li Ruotai said now, Li Ruobing said before. Tai, what are you doing? Li Ruobing also became angry. Sister, let me tell you, sister, he is a liar, he must have other plans. You can't trust him. Li Ruotai pointed at Wu Chen and shouted. Chapter 16. Apologize to me, I will teach you. Tai, calm down, listen to your brother-in-law. Li Ruobing said. Sister, I don't care how he lied to you, but I won't believe him. Li Ruotai continued, He can't even tell where the information came from. Maybe someone sent him to approach you. Now he wants to do something to me. The reason why Li Ruotai reacted so strongly was not only because Wu Chen refused to reveal the source of the information, but also because of stereotyped prejudice. Stereotype bias was a term in psychology, which referred to a generalized and fixed view that people form on a certain thing or object. Li Ruotai felt that Wu Chen was a kid who lied to his elder sister, and he was hostile toward him, so whatever Wu Chen said, he would maliciously doubt Wu Chen. You have to change your temper, Wu Chen said to Li Ruotai very flatly. Don't teach me, you little. Li Ruotai yelled, picked up the jacket he had put aside, and pulled out a gun from it. He was about to point his gun at Wu Chen. Snapped. A loud slap in the face stunned Li Ruotai. Rebel, give me the gun. Li Ruobing was so angry that she snatched the gun from Li Ruotai's hand. Sister, you beat me for an outsider. Li Ruotai covered his face and looked at his elder sister in disbelief. I'm afraid you'll die in prison. Li Ruobing gritted her teeth and raised her hand to gesture again, scaring Li Ruotai to hide. Sit down, Li Ruobing commanded and pointed to the sofa. Li Ruotai's face was dark, but he still sat down. He didn't look at his elder sister but stared at Wu Chen, who was calm and composed as if he wanted to eat Wu Chen alive. Li Ruobing went back to Wu Chen's side and sat down beside Wu Chen. She threw the pistol on the coffee table and put her hands on her forehead, looking like she was having a headache. Calm down, why bother? We are brothers and sisters, no matter how bad the relationship is. Wu Chen comforted Li Ruobing. Don't pretend to be a good person in front of me. I'm on good terms with my sister, so you don't need to worry about it. Li Ruotai opened his mouth and yelled. After speaking, he looked at Li Ruobing and said, Sister, do you really believe in this liar who can't explain clearly? Li Ruobing glanced at her younger brother expressionlessly. Believe in Wu Chen. In fact, she didn't trust Wu Chen much. But Wu Chen said that he was an information businessman, and she had already verified it. Wu Chen accurately found out the traitor around her, so let's not talk about whether Wu Chen was reliable, but in terms of intelligence, Li Ruobing believed in Wu Chen. She didn't know what kind of tricks Wu Chen would play on her in the future, but if Wu Chen really had some big conspiracy, at least for now, Wu Chen must still be in the stage of gaining her trust, and would provide her with valuable information. Therefore, she believed what Wu Chen said about her brother going to have an accident. Caring was messy. Li Ruobing didn't want her brother to have an accident, so she was willing to cooperate with Wu Chen. She knew that if she hadn't been there to suppress him, her younger brother might have shot Wu Chen, so she had no choice but to slap him to calm him down. Li Ruobing did not answer his younger brother's question about trusting liars, but motioned to Wu Chen and said, continue. Liao Bo, who came to Donghai Police Station as the deputy director, is here to handle the case of Crown Entertainment. Secretary Wei of the Municipal Party Committee also knows about this matter. Although he has some relationship with your Li family, this matter is very big. He chooses to stay out of the matter. It's still in the evidence collection stage. Wu Chen continued, some investigators are disguised as guests to go undercover, but some investigators have already lurked in the club and collected a lot of evidence. Wu Chen turned his head as he spoke. He asked Li Ruobing, have you brought a pen and paper? Li Ruobing was a businessman, and she carried a notepad and a pen with her. She took it out of the bag and handed it to Wu Chen. Wu Chen quickly wrote the names of some people and their positions in the Crown Entertainment Club in the notebook. Waiters, cleaners, chefs, bartenders, their identities here could be said to be varied. There was only one thing in common, they all joined the Crown Entertainment Club within 4 months. Because Li Ruotai was very strict with the internal management of the Crown Club, no one had penetrated into his side so far, and he could only get in touch with the relative periphery. This also contributed to the slow progress of forensics. Otherwise, the above would have done it long ago. After Wu Chen finished writing, he threw the notebook to Li Ruotai. With a dark face, Li Ruotai picked up the notebook and glanced at it, then looked at Wu Chen and said, you mean it? Are they all undercover agents? There should be information around them that they haven't had time to send out, just check it out. Wu Chen spread his hands. Li Ruotai looked at Wu Chen with a dark face and was speechless. He took it easy, picked up the phone, and made a call. Notify the cleaning department, the catering department, the sales department. Li Ruotai said a series of departments, and finally said, then gather in the lobby on the second floor. Then he made another call. Old Wu, go to the lobby on the second floor and give them a lecture. After making 2 calls, Li Ruotai stood up. Everyone was already transferred. What's next? Of course, search the rooms of these people on the list. Li Ruotai didn't go in person, but called the trusted bodyguards outside the door and asked them to take people there. The trusted bodyguards around him were all brought out by the Li family. Many of them were retired special forces and scouts. They were professional. After everything was arranged, Li Ruotai was in the room, staring at Wu Chen. I'm waiting for your apology. Wu Chen smiled at Li Ruotai. Oh, Li Ruotai sneered. Li Ruobing suddenly tilted her body, held Wu Chen's hand, and whispered in Wu Chen's ear, what shall we have for lunch? French food, don't you like foie gras? But I'm not feeling well today. Then something light. How about going to eat Japanese food? There is a new one on Wadung Street, and the taste is not bad. If you don't want to go home, I will make it for you. It stood to reason that Li Ruobing should not have had such a thing happen to Li Ruotai. She was in the mood to think about what to have for lunch. This scene was wrong. But, thinking about it the other way around, Li Ruobing still had the mood to chat with Wu Chen about dinner under such circumstances, which showed that she was a woman who was in love. Li Ruotai sat across from her, tearing up the note and staring at it. He really loved his elder sister. Was it forced by Ding Ruolong? How did he find such a product? Li Ruotai had a lot of people, so the search was very fast. Just over 20 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Come in, Li Ruotai said. The bodyguard came in with a tray, and there were some messy things in the tray, such as laptops, mobile phones, DVD players, vacuum cameras, diaries, and bugs. Boss, the bodyguard put down the things and whispered to Li Ruotai again. Li Ruotai's expression changed after hearing this. After listening, he immediately picked up the diary and quickly looked at it. It recorded the names of many guests, some meeting times, and phone numbers page by page. He picked up the DVD again and saw that there were some candid pictures in it. In addition to the videos, there were many, many photos. All were photos of the facilities, personnel, and business scenes inside the clubhouse. After that, he looked at the contents of the memory card of the laptop, mobile phone, and vacuum camera. Both the laptop and the mobile phone were locked, but they had been cracked by Li Ruotai's master hackers. The more Li Ruotai watched, the faster his breathing became, the more fierce his face became, and the veins on his forehead popped up. No one would shoot these for no reason. He even saw a candid photo of the ledger on his laptop. What Wu Chen said was true. Everyone on the list, arrest all of them right away. Fuck. Damn, you damn yin lousy. Li Ruotai suddenly stood up and shouted angrily. You can't arrest them. The disappearance of any of them may cause the higher-ups to take action in advance. The higher-ups have already obtained some evidence, but they haven't got the most critical casino evidence yet, so they haven't taken action yet. Wu Chen suddenly said indifferently. The bodyguard slowed down and looked back at Li Ruotai. Do you want to vent your anger and go to prison, or do you want to pass this test safely? Wu Chen looked at Li Ruotai again and asked. Li Ruotai, who was in a state of rage, suddenly calmed down, and his back was covered with cold sweat. Put the things back intact. Wu Chen turned to look at the bodyguard and said. The bodyguard hesitated for a moment, but seeing that Li Ruotai didn't object, he came over again, picked up the tray, and went out. Li Ruotai sat down, his eyes widened and flickering. He thought of all sorts of dire consequences. Do you want to go to prison? Wu Chen asked Li Ruotai. Li Ruotai looked up at Wu Chen fiercely, and asked, what should I do? Apologize to me, I'll teach you. Wu Chen said to Li Ruotai expressionlessly. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 17. Yes, brother-in-law is right. What Wu Chen said was very serious. Although he came to help Li Ruotai after receiving money from Li Ruobing, but as a brother-in-law, if he didn't show some majesty, he wouldn't be able to justify it. The days were still long, and they had to plan for the future. What are you doing? He's my younger brother, that is, your younger brother. He's from my own family. I've already beaten him. If you can find a way, tell him. Li Ruobing pushed Wu Chen's shoulder lightly and said, even a little coquettish. Of course, it was acting, but Li Ruobing was sincere for his brother. Now that the authorities had a lot of evidence, Li Ruobing couldn't think of how to save his brother. This kid doesn't regard me as his brother-in-law. Wu Chen glanced at Li Ruobing and said, don't do this. Li Ruobing begged, but pinched Wu Chen from an angle that Li Ruotai couldn't see. Pinching Wu Chen was a warning since she paid for it. Although he was only paid for information, he was not paid for solving the problem. Brother-in-law, what are you talking about? You are my brother-in-law. Li Ruotai suddenly smiled, with a sincere smile. He stood up, handed a cigarette to Wu Chen, and said with a smile on his face, just now your brother is wrong. Please forget about my mistake. I am only worried that my sister will be cheated on by some bastard. Of course, it's not about you. You are capable, and you are very suitable for my sister. A man can bend and stretch. Li Ruotai was very capable. He was going to have an accident this time, not only because he played too much, but also because he was betrayed. Wu Chen looked at Li Ruotai, who was bowing over to hand the cigarette, smiled, took the cigarette, and put it on the table. He doesn't smoke. By accepting the cigarettes, he saved some face for Li Ruotai and accepted his apology. Smoke less. Smoking will kill you sooner or later. No amount of money can save you. How many times have you been told? Li Ruobing said to Li Ruotai. Li Ruotai didn't dare to refute. First, you have to kill Xiehu. He knows too much about the business of the two of you. You can only clean up after he dies. Wu Chen began to speak directly. Li Ruotai, who just sat down, was taken aback. Xiehu was from the Xie family, but was only a collateral descendant of the Xie family. In front of Li Ruotai, Xiehu was called brother by him, the kind to curry favor with the donors. However, after all, he was a member of the Xie family. If he suddenly disappeared. Fuck! How dare you harm me? Li Ruotai slapped his thigh with a fierce look on his face. Think it through. Compared to the consequences of killing Xiehu, getting out of this crisis was more important. Do you know that Xiehu takes drugs? Wu Chen asked. Li Ruotai nodded. He knew that although drugs were a big taboo and Li Ruotai had never touched it before, he knew that Xiehu had been using them for several years. Xiehu has a concubine who lives in Villa number 17 of Hedang Manor in Qingxi. He often goes to Hedang Manor to smoke with his concubine. Send someone to Qingxi, he will die from an overdose, right? Wu Chen said. Li Ruotai's eyes gradually widened, and then he smiled. Yes, brother-in-law is right. Killing people was usually about making it seem like an accident. But if the accident was too strange, it would be investigated, and only when it was found would there be problems. And making Xiehu die by injecting himself, the reaction of Xia's family should be, the family's dirty laundry should not be publicized. They would just want to hide it, and they wouldn't investigate. Secondly, all the evidence is gathered in one person's hands. As long as you take out the evidence and destroy it, you will be safe. Wu Chen said. Liao Bo, Li Ruotai asked back. Yes. He was transferred here just to catch you. The collected evidence is with him. Okay, I'll get him. Li Ruotai gritted his teeth. What the hell? Wu Chen continued. He's the deputy director. Do you think it's not serious enough? I warn you, don't touch any investigators. Then, what should I do? Steal. Li Ruotai was a little confused. Why steal? He didn't even know where the evidence is. And even if he investigated, the time might be too late. Room 501, Unit 3, Erdao Lane, Liushu Avenue. There is a hidden safe under the wardrobe of the master bedroom. The password of the safe is 5/7, 1/5, 6/4. The evidence is inside. Because arresting you is a top secret task, in order to prevent leaks, this is the only piece of evidence. Send someone to take it away and destroy it. Li Ruotai was stunned again. Even Li Ruobing squinted at Wu Chen, her expression was very strange. Because what Wu Chen said was too detailed. He even knew the combination of the safe. Third, Wu Chen continued, Crown Entertainment has to close down as soon as possible. You have to wait for the limelight to pass before opening again. That's easy to say, I can't just close. Li Ruotai said, I can't just close the door, it will make people suspicious. Wu Chen continued, I will tell you in detail how to do it later. It's your business with Xiehu, you must be handled first. This, Li Ruotai's face changed completely, and he was very embarrassed. This is not good, my old man's temper. He was afraid of being beaten by his grandfather. It's the Wei family that's going to move you this time. Although your Li family is not much worse than the Wei family, you let them seize the opportunity. They also took advantage of the trend and attacked your Li family. This matter must be known to the old man, do you understand? The Wei family, Li Ruotai muttered. In fact, the relationship between the big families was good. Although they fought openly and secretly, they were all very harmonious on the surface. The Li family and the Wei family were an exception. The two had been hostile for many years. There was an all-out war. Many people from both families went to prison. It wasn't until the old men on both sides stepped down from their high positions that the war ceased. But in recent years, the two families still had conflicts from time to time. The Wei family had the upper hand, which was why the old man of the Li family insisted on letting Li Ruobing marry Ding Ruolong. Only by marrying the Ding family could they join forces to fight against the Wei family. I understand. I will tell the old man. Li Ruotai nodded. This involves a struggle between two big families, so the problem was definitely not that simple. After the big trouble was solved, there would still be many small troubles. The Li family could solve it quickly only if the old man knew. Don't mention me, Wu Chen said. Li Ruotai didn't seem to hear clearly. When reporting to your old man, don't mention me. Wu Chen said as he held Li Ruobing's hand. You just need to know about me and Ruobing. Your old man insists that Ruobing marry that man surnamed Ding. If you let him know of my existence, it will be of no benefit to me or your sister. Okay, I won't tell. Li Ruotai immediately said, I'll just say, I found it all myself. Wu Chen nodded. Then brother-in-law, about closing the store, Li Ruotai asked again as if humbly asking for advice. It depends on whether you want to part with it or not. Wu Chen said. I'm willing, even if I demolish this place. Li Ruotai said. Then Wu Chen was about to talk. Ding-a-ling. Li Ruotai's cell phone rang, and he frowned. Everyone around him knew that when the old lady came to visit, nobody should bother him. He looked at the phone, hung up directly, and smiled at Wu Chen again. Brother-in-law, tell me. Ding-ling-ling. The other party called again. What's the matter? Li Ruotai scolded after picking it up. Boss, it was Li Ruotai's confidant, who bit the bullet and reported. The angry expression on Li Ruotai's face quickly receded, and gradually turned into astonishment, with staring eyes. Something big happened. How much did you lose? 200 million. Okay, I'll be there right away. Li Ruotai hung up the phone and said to Wu Chen and Li Ruobing, Sister, brother-in-law, please wait for me a moment. Something happened at the casino, I have to go and have a look. After finishing speaking, he walked out, walking very quickly. Is it Boss Shen from Fusheng Aluminum? Wu Chen sat there and asked. Li Ruotai stopped and looked back at Wu Chen with shock on his face. Because Wu Chen was right. He knew again. Let's go and have a look together. Wu Chen stood up. Chapter 18. What's going on? Brother-in-law knows how to gamble. Wu Chen got up and gathered his clothes, put one hand in his pocket. Li Ruobing stood up, adjusted Wu Chen's neckline, and then took Wu Chen's arm. Li Ruotai saw everything and now he had no doubt that this Wu Chen was the man his elder sister liked, genuinely liked. The few people went out, followed by more than a dozen bodyguards, walking towards the stairs. Donghai Crown Entertainment Club might not be the largest in East China in terms of scale, but it must be of the highest quality. The whole building had a total of 11 floors. It was not too high, but it occupied a large area. The area of each layer was extremely huge. The first floor had the largest bar and KTV in the entire East China Sea. The 2nd to 7th floors were sauna clubs. The 8th floor was the staff area. The 9th and 10th floors were the casino and supporting luxury suites, and the top 11th floor was the core area. The main business of the Crown Entertainment Club was sauna bathing and massage, which was of course an informal one. Excluding other employees in the entire club, there were thousands of beautiful employees alone. And the number of rooms in the clubhouse, only counting for guests and casino suites, there were a total of more than 1,200 rooms. According to Wu Chen's harsh scoring standards, the average appearance of the employees in the Crown Club might reach 7.5 points. Overall high level, however, except for a very small number of natural beauties, most of the others had basically undergone plastic surgery. In fact, sauna bathing was only the superficial main project of Crown Clubhouse. The real main project was the casino on the 9th and 10th floors. The casino only accepted regular customers, and the degree of confidentiality was extremely high. It was through the way of friends bringing friends to develop the source of customers. More than a dozen people entered the elevator, and the bodyguards swiped their cards before pressing the button for the 9th floor and going to the casino. "Brother-in-law, how do you know it's boss Chen from Fusheng Aluminum?" Li Ruotai finally asked. He arrived in the East China Sea yesterday, and even invited a gambling expert from the Macau Special Administrative Region to come over, intending to avenge his shame. Wu Chen glanced at Li Ruotai while talking and said, "You arranged for someone to win him 300 million yuan, and the problem lies with him. His father-in-law is very close to the Wei family." Speaking of Li Ruotai's going to be done at this time, the reason was not that the Crown Club was too ostentatious, nor was it because he arranged for someone to secretly film some important people's consumption. Not that he threatened anyone. The cause was in the casino. The business between Li Ruotai and Xiehu, in fact, was that the sociable Xiehu relied on his connections to attract some billionaires to the Crown Club to gamble. Li Ruotai would arrange people so that they would win first and then lose astronomical figures thereafter. It didn't need any high-tech cheating methods. Li Ruotai had a lot of money to hire gambling masters. Those billionaires who came to gamble were naturally businessmen. None of them really knew how to gamble. They only believed in luck. Naturally, if they won, and if they lost, they lost. At present, there were no less than 10 rich bosses who lost hundreds of millions in the Crown Club, and there were even more who lost tens of millions. But Li Ruotai also knew when enough was enough. He would not really let the billionaire lose all his family property with them. He would not offend people like that. But there were also people who don't listen to advice. Gambling too much. Shen Guangjun, the boss of Fusheng Aluminum, was the one who didn't listen to persuasion. After he lost 200 million in the Crown Club, he refused to listen to advice and continued to gamble and lost another 100 million. This was because he had no money in his account, so he gave up for the time being. Li Ruotai didn't accept signings on credit. The market value of Fusheng Aluminum was several billion, but market value was market value, and cash flow was cash flow. It was not the same thing. Shen Guangjun lost almost all the company's cash in the Crown Club, and there was no money in the account, which caused Fusheng Aluminum to directly encounter operational problems. After losing the money, Shen Guangjun didn't dare to trouble Li Ruotai. He couldn't afford to offend the Li family, so he could only find ways to raise money everywhere. It was during the process of raising money that he told some people about losing money in gambling, but he found out that he was not the only one who lost so much money in the Crown Clubhouse. This matter was also known by the Wei family. At first, the Wei family only thought that Li Ruotai wanted to steal some money, but they sent someone to conduct a simple investigation and found that there was a big problem with the Crown Club. Looting money from the rich was a small problem. Li Ruotai was very smart. He would not provoke the real top rich people. Those who would be cut off by him were those rich and powerful, but not top rich. To put it bluntly, they were some nouveau riche. He wouldn't provoke a real big shot. The big problem that the Wei family found was in the sauna and massage business. Li Ruotai secretly took pictures of some important people and employees in the room and caught these people. If this method was used well, those people could protect the Crown Club, and even become a helper to the Li family. If it was not used well, the person who offended was not one or two. The Wei family realized that this is an opportunity. A chance to unite many forces at once and send Li Ruotai to prison directly, and even plunge the entire Li family into turmoil. So the Wei family launched an attack secretly and contacted many people, including some powerful figures who had been threatened by Li Ruotai. Wu Chen investigated Li Ruobing and Li Ruotai in great detail. So he understood this. He knew better about the situation in the East China Sea on July 7th. And Shen Guangjun was in the East China Sea yesterday, and he even found a gambling expert, so Wu Chen knew that Shen Guangjun would probably come to the Crown Club to gamble again in the next few days to win it back. Therefore, in the room before, after Li Ruotai answered the phone, Wu Chen realized that Shen Guangjun should have brought someone here. Under normal circumstances, Shen Guangjun wouldn't dare to bring gambling masters to the Crown Club, that would be smashing the game. He dared not provoke Li Ruotai. But now Shen Guangjun obviously didn't care about Li Ruotai's revenge. He knew everything and knew that Li Ruotai would not be messing around for a few days. Shen Guangjun's mentality was probably 80% wanting to win back the lost money before the Crown Club was investigated, and win some more. Ding! The elevator doors opened. The casino on the 9th floor was here. The decoration was magnificent and there were gaming tables everywhere, but there were very few customers because it was still morning. The Crown Club was closed in the morning and only opened in the evening. But the casino was an exception. Regular customers could come up through the VIP elevator, and some guests already lived here and came to play cards early in the morning. Of course, there were also those who gambled all night and had not left until now. Seeing Li Ruotai coming, a middle-aged fat man in a black suit ran over, sweating profusely, and kept wiping his sweat with a handkerchief. "Boss, you're here." "He's in the 9 to 5 box." After he finished speaking quickly, he nodded to Li Ruobing and called Miss. This person was the manager of the casino, Li Ruotai's confidant, named Bao Wei, who was also an old man of the Li family. After Bao Weikai greeted Li Ruobing, he was surprised because he noticed that the eldest lady was holding a man's hand today. He didn't know Wu Chen, and he didn't know how to greet him. Everyone walked in. Bao Wei quickly ran a few steps and led the way ahead. Soon to the box door. The bodyguard opened the door, Li Ruotai went in first, and then Li Ruotai's hearty laughter sounded in the box. "Ha ha ha ha, Boss Shen, I haven't seen you for a few months. You look so good today." Wu Chen and Li Ruobing went in and saw Li Ruotai shaking hands with a bald middle-aged man, who was naturally Shen Guangjun. "Mr. Li is the one who keeps the spring breeze still." Although Shen Guangjun was shaking hands with Li Ruotai, he smiled. He didn't dare to treat Li Ruotai with this attitude before. Wu Chen glanced at them, didn't look much, and turned his attention to the gambling table. The two bet against each other. There were piles of chips on the left, and the gambler was a middle-aged man with glasses and a gentle manner. He was a gambling master brought by Shen Guangjun, and he was invited from the Australian market. There were only a few million chips left on the right, and the gambler was a middle-aged man with a hook nose. He was the #1 gambling master in the Crown Clubhouse. According to the situation, all the gambling masters in the Crown Club had taken turns to play, and the most powerful one also played, but they were still losing. The hook-nosed middle-aged man was reading cards, sweat dripping down his face. He was under too much pressure and lost a lot this time. After watching the cards, Hooked Nose murmured, "What the hell," and directly deducted the cards. "Fold." Wu Chen glanced at the situation, then walked over and said, "Get up, I'm playing." Hooked Nose looked up for a moment. He didn't know Wu Chen, but he knew Li Ruobing who was following, so he stood up and moved out of the way. But he looked at Li Ruotai with something wrong. "Li Ruotai, who was exchanging pleasantries with Shen Guangjun, noticed the situation and was also stunned. What's going on? Brother-in-law knows how to gamble. He gave the elder sister a questioning look. Li Ruobing shook her head lightly. She really didn't know if Wu Chen knew how to gamble. She felt that this matter was quite strange. Yo, you changed again. Why did you change to a younger one? Shen Guangnian grinned and said loudly when he saw it, Mr. Li, you are too humble. You lost to me by more than 2 billion today. You're even giving me money on purpose. That's not good. Ha 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 ha. The words were said to be a joke, but in fact, they were teasing and ridiculing that Li Ruotai had no one under his command. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 19. Stud. Real gambling masters were neither young nor old, but basically middle-aged. Although the old man had rich experience, he was too old to hold his head. He sat at the gambling table for hours or even 10 hours, and his concentration was not enough, so it was easy for his opponents to see his flaws. And young people. Being young meant playing poker for a short time and lacking experience. Learning gambling skills depended on talent, but it also required experience, and the experience was more important than talent, because the so-called talent could only be used in practice, and it did not help mental growth. The growth of one's own mind and how to figure out the opponent's mind were extremely dependent on experience. It takes years of gambling with people and all kinds of people to master. Cheating was gambling, but gambling was not pure cheating. A young genius magician mastered amazing tricks, but no matter how fast he was, it would be difficult to win money from a master gambler, because a master gambler relied on the opponent's facial expressions and subtle movements. They could judge what the opponent was thinking, and guess what card the opponent was holding. Don't be afraid of having a low card in your hand, just don't call and fold, it's just a loss of an ante, it's impossible not to have a low card. If no one dared to play 1,000 without a card, it's too easy to be caught, and if you are caught, you will be chopped off. Therefore, gambling masters were generally middle-aged people in their prime. Wu Chen had a good aura because he changed his clothes. And so, he didn't look like a college student anymore, but more like a rich young second generation. Shen Guangnian didn't know Li Ruobing, so it was difficult to guess Wu Chen's identity. He probably really thought that Li Ruotai had no one under his command, and this, he guessed right. Li Ruotai really had no one under his command, and the number one master was defeated. Wu Chen was not Li Ruotai's man, but his brother-in-law. Li Ruotai cheated people, but he would not cheat his own people, so even if the rich boss who was close to the Li family came to play in his casino, he would not arrange gambling masters to cheat them of their money. It would just be a matter of luck, because if the casino was pumped, it would never lose money. Only those billionaires who have nothing to do with the Li family would become fat sheep. Therefore, Shen Guangnian really didn't know Li Ruobing. Of course, he knew that Li Ruotai had an older sister, but he had never seen her. And if he wanted to come to a place like a casino, the legendary and proud eldest granddaughter of the Li family would never come. Li Ruotai kept winking at Li Ruobing. Li Ruobing frowned and shook her head again. She really didn't know. She wasn't afraid that her younger brother would know, because even if she didn't know if Wu Chen knew how to gamble, it had nothing to do with dating. They didn't expect Wu Chen to play suddenly, and Shen Guangnian had already sarcastically called it. If Li Ruotai changed suddenly, he would lose his face. Deal the cards. Wu Chen raised his hand as a signal. The croupier was of course Li Ruotai's man, and he was also a master of gambling, but he would not make money, and his existence was more to prevent customers from making money. The casino shuffled all the cards by machine, allowing guests to check the cards suddenly at any time before the cards were dealt. The croupier couldn't touch the cards with his hands but with a wooden shovel. In fact, Li Ruotai was more trustworthy, or in other words, his heart was not dark enough. He would only arrange for gambling masters to bet against fat sheep to win more money. In other aspects of the casino, it was very well regulated. Whether it was the casino service staff, dealers, electronic equipment, etc., there was no room for cheating. After all, it's just for the sake of slaughtering unfamiliar local rich people, or billionaires who compete with the Li family in the business. Can you do it? Li Ruobing leaned over behind Wu Chen and asked in a low voice in Wu Chen's ear. From this scene, it seemed that she was just a female companion brought over by Wu Chen. It was normal for the big boss to gamble and be accompanied by beautiful women. There are only a few million left, even if I lose. Wu Chen tilted his head and replied in a low voice. The shuffling machine rattled. Then the croupier dealt the cards. The wooden shovel handed over the cards and slid them onto the table. The cards were buckled, and a little crooked. Wu Chen seemed to have an obsessive-compulsive disorder, first twisting the card so that the long side of the card was facing him, then slowly pinching one side and looking at the card. Immediately after the second cards were dealt, Wu Chen also righted himself first, took a look, and turned around. It was a 7 of spades. The two sides were playing stud. 2 cards were dealt first. The first card was buckled, it was a hidden card, and the second needed to be revealed. Ante 500,000. The open card on the opposite side was 5 of hearts. Wu Chen had a high card, so he spoke first. 500,000. Wu Chen threw away his chips and went out. Call. The gentle middle-aged man adjusted his glasses and looked at Wu Chen with a smile. His name was Yao Bin, and he was also one of the top players in the entire gambling city of Australia. A real master usually remembered one sentence: don't underestimate any opponent. The psychological warfare of gambling was very important, and underestimating it was tantamount to giving money to the opponent. But Wu Chen just underestimated him. More than 900 years ago, Wu Chen knew that Yao Bin was in the East China Sea. He knew Yao Bin's level very well. As for Wu Chen's gambling skills, it was no exaggeration to say that Wu Chen could win against all the casinos in the world. In the eyes of others, Wu Chen was a young man in his early 20s who could not possibly have much experience. But in fact, Wu Chen was an old monster who lived for 1,000 years. Fold. When the fourth card was dealt, Yao Bin chose to discard the cards. Because there were 2 8s in Wu Chen's card. He was not in a hurry to win all of Wu Chen's chips, and he didn't care if he win or lose. He wants to win the big ones, so in the first few games, he has been observing Wu Chen's habits, Wu Chen's psychology, etc. Yao Bin was a person who liked young opponents very much. He was even willing to lose a little bit to young people first, and after a little stimulation, he could win a lot of money. Although Wu Chen's chip was not much, the casino had a lot of chips. Li Ruotai had already lost more than 200 million, it was impossible to say no to playing easily. Once the chips in Wu Chen's hand were not enough, the casino would definitely add more. In 5 consecutive rounds, Wu Chen won 3 and lost 2, one of which he simply folded. The overall win was quite a lot, and the chips in his hand were just over 10 million. Ante 1 million. Yao Bin asked Wu Chen suddenly. Okay. Wu Chen nodded with a smile. Yao Bin would not easily make such a requirement for an old player to make an ante. The opponent can easily see through his calculations, so this method would only be used on young people. Boss Chen, your friend seems to be having bad luck. Li Ruotai said. Ha ha ha, I guess it's Mr. Li's timing. Shen Guangnian laughed and said, as if he didn't mind at all. He really didn't mind, because he knew what Yao Bin he invited was going to do. Before entering the Crown Club, Yao Bin had told Shen Guangjun about his methods. Play 5 more rounds. Under Yao Bin's planning, Wu Chen still lost less and wins more. The chips in his hand had reached 25 million. 11th inning. Wu Chen turned the hidden card straight but didn't look at it. He directly looked at the second card, and then revealed it. It was the Ace of Hearts. This was not the first time he had done this kind of thing. In the first few rounds, he didn't look at the hidden card, and he seemed to believe in luck. Yao Bin's card was the King of Spades. 1 million. Wu Chen threw the chips. Call. Yao Bin followed suit. Release. And. Release. And. Release. And. The 5th card was dealt. Wu Chen's 4 cards were Ace of Hearts, 6 of Clubs, 7 of Clubs, and 3 of Spades. Yao Bin's 4 cards were K of Spades, 10 of Spades, 6 of Hearts, and 4 of Diamonds. The cards on both sides were very bad, and the best result was that they were all right. From the face of the cards alone, Wu Chen had a better chance of winning, because if it was all single cards, Wu Chen had an ace, but Wu Chen didn't look at the hidden card, and everyone was concentrating on looking at the hidden card, knowing that Wu Chen didn't look at it. Stud. Yao Bin pushed a handful of chips piled up into a hill and looked at Wu Chen with a smile. Asterisk. Chapter 20. This kid is Yao Bin Stud. Although he pushed down his chips, it seemed that he bet tens of millions all at once, but in fact, it was not calculated like this. The rules of stud were to count according to the person with the least chips on the gaming table. Wu Chen still had 21 million chips left in his hand. Therefore, Yao Bin's stud amount was 21 million. Wu Chen could either call and compare the cards or fold. He looked at Yao Bin, and held down his hidden card. He hadn't looked at it. Now, he was finally about to look at it. He raised a corner and checked it. Stud. Wu Chen pushed all his chips. Mr. Wu, do you want to consider adding more? Yao Bin asked, observing Wu Chen's expression. The two had bet against each other for 10 rounds before and had exchanged several times. He asked Wu Chen's surname, and Wu Chen said it was Wu. How about we add another 50 million? Yao Bin asked. Bring 50 million chips. Before Wu Chen could speak, Li Ruotai turned his head and motioned to the casino manager Bao Wei who was standing at the door. Wait a minute. Wu Chen raised his hand as a signal, then turned his head and said, take 100 million. After speaking, he looked at Yao Bin, and said with a smile, I'll add 100 million. Yao Bin's complexion suddenly changed. Through the observation of the 10 rounds, he believed that Wu Chen was a person who believed in luck, but Wu Chen was very cautious, and even folded in the first round. Only when the first revealed card was very big, he would not directly look at the hidden card. And once the two sides showed their cards and he was at a disadvantage, he would look at the hidden cards. In this round, Wu Chen's first shown card was the Ace of Hearts. The shown card has always been in the upper hand, so he didn't look at the hidden card until the end, and followed with a stud. Yao Bin's expression turned a little off. He turned over the corner of his card and looked at it. His card was a king of diamonds. He had a pair of kings. And if Wu Chen wanted to win, his card must be ace. Only in this way could there be a pair of aces. But because Wu Chen didn't look at the hidden card before, in terms of probability, the possibility of Wu Chen's hidden cards being an A was extremely low. This was the reason why Yao Bin studied and provoked Wu Chen to raise again. He felt that no matter whether Wu Chen called or disagreed with him raising the bet, he just opened the card, and he was sure to win. He hoped that Wu Chen would call. Wu Chen did indeed follow. But Wu Chen wanted to raise 100 million. In terms of rules, because this was the last round, Yao Bin still had nearly 200 million chips. His stud would be limited by the number of chips on Wu Chen's table, but if Wu Chen raised, the upper limit was Yao Bin's chips. If he wanted to raise the bet, he had to discuss it with Wu Chen. If Wu Chen disagreed, he didn't have to raise the bet, and both parties directly opened the cards. But if Wu Chen wanted to raise the bet, he didn't need to discuss it. He just needed to ask someone to bring over the chips, which should not exceed the upper limit of Yao Bin's chips. Bao Wei quickly sent over 100 million chips. Just a small box, with a total of 20 golden chips. This was the largest chip in the Crown Club, a chip of 5 million. Wu Chen directly pushed a box of chips over, and said with a smile, raise. Yao Bin's face was a little stiff, and based on his understanding of Wu Chen, he knew that if Wu Chen didn't have really big cards in his hand, he wouldn't dare to raise them. As for the expression on Wu Chen's face now, his left hand was always on his dark card. According to Yao Bin's previous observation, only when the hidden card was really important, Wu Chen would subconsciously put his hand there. Mr. Wu, you are too impatient. Yao Bin laughed suddenly. You are eager to win back the money your boss lost when you play a big card. If you don't add this 100 million, but follow what I said, only adding 50 million, then you will win me 50 million more. After Yao Bin finished speaking, he revealed the hidden card. It was K, and the bright card also had K, so it was a pair of K. He grabbed all the cards again and threw them aside. He didn't follow Wu Chen's raise. Fold. It's only more than 20 million. He won more than 200 million before. It's a small problem. It was worth it for him to understand Wu Chen's impatience. Wu Chen smiled, but did not respond to Yao Bin's preaching. The hidden card is an A. Li Ruobing, who had been by the side, couldn't help asking curiously. Wu Chen looked at the hidden cards too quickly before, unless she laid down on the table, she couldn't see them. Although Li Ruobing didn't gamble, the rules were still clear. In this situation, Wu Chen must have an ace hidden in order to win. He dared to add 100 million, who would dare to add Seuss if it was not a winning card? No, the card is 2 of hearts. Wu Chen looked at the hidden card with a smile. There was an eerie silence in the box. Wu Chen's cards were 2 of hearts, A of hearts, 6 of clubs, 7 of clubs, and 3 of spades. Yao Bin's cards were K of diamonds, K of spades, 10 of spades, 6 of hearts, and 4 of diamonds. Wu Chen was a loose card, and the biggest one is A. Yao Bin's card was a pair of kings. So in fact, Yao Bin's cards were bigger in this round. If he followed Wu Chen's raise of 100 million, then he would win. But he thought he had mastered Wu Chen's gambling habits, and thought that Wu Chen's hidden card was an ace, so he didn't dare to follow. Wu Chen successfully used his small cards to win and defeat Yao Bin's stud, winning 21 million. Counting the previous rounds of betting, he won a total of 25 million in this game. Ha 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 ha. Li Ruotai laughed suddenly, breaking the silence in the box. He patted Shen Guangjun on the shoulder and said, "Boss Shen, your friend is not courageous." Ha 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 ha. Li Ruotai, who was previously suffocated, finally had the opportunity to fight back fiercely. Although he only won more than 20 million, he was as happy as if he had 200 million won. Shen Guangjun's face was not very good, and he kept silent. At the same time, "You tricked me." Yao Bin stared at Wu Chen and said. "It's you who dare not follow, blame me." Wu Chen spread his hands and smiled. "Hey," Yao Bin sneered, then smiled again, and adjusted his glasses. He immediately adjusted his mentality, and he thought he had mastered Wu Chen's playing habits. "Take it away." Wu Chen raised his head and said to Bao Wei, asking him to take away the small box containing 100 million chips. This was brought over temporarily. Wu Chen didn't need this money. Both sides continued. Wu Chen had 50 million chips. Yao Bin still had 190 million chips, of which 30 million was his initial stake, and 160 million was his winning. In the next 20 or so rounds, Yao Bin found that even if he didn't release the water, it would be very difficult to win against Wu Chen, with more losses than wins. Wu Chen was very strange. He could even be said to be contradictory. He believed in luck, he could deceive people, and sometimes he behaves very cowardly. Wu Chen would sometimes fold his cards suddenly, causing Yao Bin, who had a big hidden card, to lose money. Sometimes, Wu Chen obviously had a bad card, and no matter how good the hidden card was, at most it was a pair, but he would call to the end. This made Yao Bin understand that Wu Chen was actually a master. Although he still had obvious flaws, he believed in luck, and luck was very good today, but he was definitely a master. He didn't know that Wu Chen was not lucky, let alone believed in luck. In addition, he knew Yao Bin, but Yao Bin knew nothing about him. In every round of cards, Wu Chen could see Yao Bin's demeanor before and after looking at the cards. Wu Chen was the one who could really judge the size of the opponent's cards through the opponent's facial expressions and small movements. Therefore, Yao Bin had no chance at all in front of Wu Chen. Game 37 ended with Wu Chen's second round fold. By this time, Wu Chen's chips had reached 150 million. And Yao Bin's chips were only 90 million left. Game 38. After Wu Chen straightened the hidden card, he didn't look at it but looked at the second card, which was revealed. It was 9 of clubs. Yao Bin's second card was the 3 of clubs. 2 million. Call. 3 million. Call. Both sides called to the final round. Wu Chen's 4 shown cards were 9 of clubs, 7 of hearts, 3 of hearts, and 6 of spades. Yao Bin's 4 shown cards were 3 of clubs, 6 of clubs, 9 of hearts, and 7 of diamonds. The cards of the 2 were sorted from big to small, all were 9, 7, 6, 3, and they were exactly the same, but the suits were different. Stud. Yao Bin went straight to stud. Wu Chen raised his hand and glanced at his watch, then smiled at Yao Bin. It's getting late, I have to go to lunch, why don't we hurry up? What do you mean? Yao Bin asked. One game will determine the outcome. Wu Chen said, I'm very lucky today, so, besides the stud, I'll add another 100 million, what do you think? You want to lie to me again? Yao Bin suddenly laughed. He knew that Wu Chen didn't even look at the hidden cards in his hand. In fact, this was no longer deceiving him, but really believing in his own luck. The face cards on both sides were the same, slightly bigger than Yao Bin of the suit because he has the 9 of hearts. Are you sure? Suddenly someone whispered to Yao Bin. It was Shen Guangnian. Because Yao Bin had no money. If Wu Chen discussed with him to raise the bet and he agreed, Shen Guangnian would pay for it. Mr. Shen, I've been staring at him. He didn't look at the hidden card, but me. Yao Bin tilted his head and whispered to Shen Guangnian, who was leaning over and carefully showed Shen Guangnian his hidden card. His hidden card was the 9 of diamonds. That was, he has a pair of 9s. Unless his hidden card is the 9 of spades, he can't beat me. Are you sure he hasn't seen the cards? No, and all 4 9s coming out in one round, the probability is very low. This kid is already on the top, he is indeed lucky today, but... The 2 communicated in a very low voice. After Shen Guangjun stood up straight, he thought about it for a while, then patted Yao Bin on the shoulder, and said proudly, okay. Let's call. Asterisk. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audio Wave to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.